Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. Got any comments? Send it to me, box13 at greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become a fan of the show on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. Not a whole lot to talk about before we get into today's show. Just want to remind you, if you're going to be booking a hotel soon, remember Priceline has got a special running through March 31st. For a limited time, if after making your Priceline.com, name your own price 2-star or better hotel booking, but before the day you check in, you find a better publicly available price, excluding taxes and fees, on another website for the same hotel and dates, call Priceline. If you qualify, they'll refund 100% of the difference and give you a $25 refund on your credit card. In addition, customers with U.S. billing addresses will get a coupon for $50 off your next purchase of a 2 nights or longer Priceline vacation package. So if you want to take advantage of that deal, click the Priceline link at greatdetectives.net. But let's go ahead and get into Box 13, 3 to Die. We'll listen and then we'll come back.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd, as Dan Holliday.
Take a letter, Miss Jordan. To Box 13, care of the Star Times. I'll need your help. I dare not go to the police for reasons I'll explain when you see me. Please come to my office in the security building.
Please come to my office in the security building, signed Douglas McIntosh. Not much of a letter, but then, as the proverb says, great oaks from little acorns grow. And before this was over, the acorn grew into a large, large oak. And now, back to Box 13 and Dan Holliday's newest adventure, 3 to Die.
Douglas McIntosh. That's a Scotch name, isn't it?
Ah, you can smell the heather, Susie.
Wonder what he wants.
Well, if this man is the same McIntosh I looked up, he's building that new tunnel under the river.
Gee, maybe he wants you to be a hedgehog.
No, Susie, they're called sandhogs.
Oh, what will they think of next?
Well, I think I'll see what Mr. McIntosh has on his mind. I'll be at the security building, Susie. Security building? Huh. It was the only security I was to know until the whole thing was over. Anyway, I went to McIntosh's office. I was shown right in to an oversized man who looked as big as the Washington Monument in tweeds. He didn't waste much time.
So you're the man, eh?
Yes, I'm the man.
All right. You call me Mac. What's your name?
Holliday. Dan Holliday.
All right. Now, Dan, I'm in trouble.
Trouble gets around.
Fast. But look here, I'll tell you quick. I'm a contractor. I bid on this new tunnel. Got the bid and posted my bond to finish the tunnel on time.
So far, everything's clear. What now?
Dan, I'm not going to finish in time.
Well, why not?
Now we get to the point, and a sharp point.
You say you're running into trouble?
Aye. Sabotage.
Well, why don't you call the police?
I can't, man. There'd be publicity. Unfavorable. I can't risk it.
Oh, then what's my problem?
Find out who's doing this to me.
You suspect someone of doing it?
Look, man, accidents like we've been having don't just happen. They're made. Broken air hoses, emery in the compressors, hundreds of delays, little things that add up to hours.
Oh, I see.
Another thing. So far, the men working for me think these things are accidents. But the moment they suspect somebody's doing the dirty work in that tunnel, they'd walk out. Sandhogging's dangerous enough itself.
In short, somebody's trying to ruin you.
Exactly. It would ruin me. The contract would go to someone else. They'd not get another contract for years.
But what can I do? I'm not a detective. You see,
I beg your pardon, Mr. McIntosh, but...
Can't you see I'm busy? What do you want?
Telegram. I thought you ought to see it right away.
All right, read it.
Well,
Oh, it's all right. You can talk in front of him. Dan, this is Fred Harris, construction engineer. Harris, Dan Holliday.
Glad to know you.
Now, what about that wire?
The last shipment of concrete we ordered was derailed about 200 miles from here.
What? Well, don't just stand there. Get every truck out on the road. Get that concrete here. You ought to have enough sense to think of that without coming to me first. Go ahead, get it down.
Yes, sir.
You see what I mean, Dan? Another delay.
Who's this Harris?
He thinks he's going to be my son-in-law. Also, he thinks an engineering degree makes him a great man, that it takes the place of 15 years of experience.
That's an argument I'd rather watch from the sideline. Well, go on with your story.
Well, we have to finish in 3 weeks or I'll forfeit my contract.
McIntosh told me everything he knew. It wasn't much. Only that whoever was doing the dirty work, causing accidents, delays, had to be working in the tunnel. So we went to the tunnel. But first, before I was taken down into the workings, I was given khaki coveralls and a fiber helmet. And a little metal tag to hang around my neck. Mac explained the tag.
Every sandhog gets one of those. It's got his own number on it.
Oh, what's it for?
Ever hear of caisson disease?
Oh, the bends?
Yeah. Well, on one side of the tag, it explains the man is a caisson worker working under pressure.
Oh, so if the disease hits him on the surface, he can be given proper treatment.
That's it. There are 6 places in the city where that can be treated. The man is put into a chamber, pressure increased, then gradually decreased.
Like a diver. If he comes up too fast, the nitrogen in his blood is forced into his tissues, causes pain.
And sometimes worse. You seem to know a lot about it, Dan.
I'm a writer. A writer has to know a little about everything.
Then I hope you'll be able to tell me more about what's going on down there. All right, ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Together, Mac and I rode one of the hoists down into the workings. My ears began to pop from the pressure, and I swallowed hard to keep them open. Then we came to the bottom of the shaft, about 150 feet below the surface of the ground. Mac looked around for a minute, and then...
Angus! Here, come here.
A short, powerfully built man walked over to us. He was grinning as he said to Mac,
What brings the boss into the tunnel?
Angus, meet a friend of mine, Dan Holliday. Dan Angus Campbell, my foreman. Best man in the world in his line.
Aye, the best beside yourself. How do you do, Dan?
How are you, Angus?
First rate. Except we had another little rumpus today, Mac.
What?
Another break in the air hose at the shield. The hose whipped around.
Anybody hurt?
Aye, Phil Evans. Hose got him right in the middle. He's done for this job. Won't work for a month. Broken ribs.
Another one.
Aye. You visiting us here, Dan?
Well, you might call it that.
Dan's a writer, doing a story on sandhogging. Wants atmosphere.
You'll get it here. You want to see the works?
Show him around, Angus, and be careful of him.
Don't you worry, Mac.
Good. I'll go back to the office now. Come back there when you finish, Dan.
Oh, sure.
Oh, it's got him worried, Dan. And little wonder. Every penny he stands to lose. Every penny.
That bad, huh?
Worse. And if I ever catch the one that's doing it, I'll whip him around with me bare hands.
You and Mac seem to be good friends, huh?
I started together 30 years ago in Scotland.
Uh-huh. Well, time's fleeting. Want to show me around?
Sure. Let's get going.
I followed Angus into a big airlock. It was a reinforced concrete compartment with double steel doors. As one door closed behind us, the pressure was built up to equal that in the tunnel. It built gradually. But I knew what would happen if it went down fast. Caisson disease. That terrible, racking pain. Brother, I had a lot of respect for the men who worked down there day after day, taking risks, big chances every time they descended into the workings. Then he opened another steel door, and Angus and I were in the tunnel itself. As soon as my ears became used to the noise, Angus guided me to a small, flat car. We got on and rolled down narrow-gauge tracks to the center of the tunnel.
If you can hear me, this car runs down by gravity. But the handbrake on it to slow it or stop. There's a motor for running back up. Saves time on a job like this.
How long is this tunnel?
This side's about a half-mile long now.
This side?
Aye. They started on the other bank of the river the same time we did.
Oh. Did you have any trouble over there?
No, only on this side. But we're keeping up with them. I'll keep driving till this thing's finished, accidents or no accidents.
How much time have you got?
3 weeks.
Think you'll make it?
We've got to. Our Mac stands to lose every nick. Look, there's the end of the track.
I looked ahead. A tremendous scaffold rose into the air. Men covered it like ants, working with pneumatic drills, shovels, wheelbarrows. Dump trucks ran back and forth, filled with the mud and shale dug out of the wall of earth that lay ahead. I looked up, and I felt a little funny when I realized that right over my head was the river, and lots of clean, fresh air, while down here was nothing but the deafening noise of the hammers, and the thought that death worked right next to every one of these men. Angus noticed me gazing up at the scaffold.
First time you ever saw anything like this, eh?
Yes. What holds all that mud back?
That shield and compressed air.
Air? Just air holding back the river?
Aye. You see, compressed air here in the tunnel is built up to a pressure equal to the pressure that's shoving down from above.
Oh, in other words, if the pressure outside this tunnel is, 45 pounds per square inch, that's the pressure in here.
Right.
This may not be a good question, but what happens if the pressure in here gets less?
We'd be crushed to jelly.
Nice thought.
That's no all. There's always the danger of a blowout.
What's that?
Sometimes we hit a weak spot in the riverbed. The bed won't take all the pressure we've got in here.
And you get a blowout, like a tire blowing out.
Aye. The men, machinery, equipment all blown to the surface of the river and into the air.
Has that ever happened?
Aye. And once, only once, mind you, a man lived to tell about it.
Angus, I take off my hat to you boys down here. 1 million people drive through tunnels every day. Yet maybe not 1 in 100 stops to think how the tunnel was built. And what it cost. Not only in money, but in injury, in death.
When a man takes to sandhogging, he takes to the danger too, only.
Only what?
We've only got a half crew working today.
Oh? Why?
2 men have been killed. Nobody wants to be the third.
Superstition?
Maybe. But lots of the men are staying home until the third. Well, what I said.
Angus showed me the whole thing. Oh, there were a million ways in which someone could sabotage the works. Break an air hose, tamper with compressed air gauges, lots of ways. Then later, Angus took me to a complicated affair. It was like an elevator cage. In fact, it was an elevator, as Angus explained.
This is the latest thing. Combination elevator and decompression chamber. Hop in, we'll go back up. We go up slow, Dan. As we go up, the pressure in here is decreased until it's equal to that of the surface.
Oh, then there's no danger of caisson disease.
Not if we go up slow enough. And the pressure's reduced. I set the gauges to do it for us.
Oh, I see.
Well, did you see enough to write your story?
No, I don't think I have. Not yet.
So, you didn't see anything, Dan?
Of course not, Mac. How could I?
I was hoping you might get an idea.
Yeah, but I didn't.
You going back again?
What could I find?
Try it, man.
Oh, but I don't think I could find any.
You advertised adventure. You couldn't get it in a better place.
Yes, I know, but how could I explain myself down there?
You're a writer. Use your imagination, man.
Well, suppose I went back there as a worker.
As a sandhog, you mean?
That's it.
But you don't know anything about it.
I can handle a hammer, a shovel,
You'd get dirty and tired. And every muscle in your body'd hollow out loud at you.
Well, I can always say I'm doing it for my art. Be a sandhog, see how it feels, then write about it.
By Harry, man, you've got it. All right, then. Starting tomorrow, you're a sandhog.
Oh, that was the way to do it. But when I got home that evening, I thought about it. That huge scaffold. Men scrambling over it, the pressure within the tunnel holding back the tons and tons of mud and silt ready to come in and crush everyone. What if that pressure failed? What if they hit a weak spot in the riverbed and there was a blowout? And the more I thought about it, the more inclined I was to... Yes?
Telegram.
Oh. Shove it under the door, will you?
Right.
Oh. And what a telegram. It read, "Save for the fact that I don't want more bloodshed, you'd have gotten yours today. Stay away from the tunnel, or you'll be the third to die."
And now back to 3 to Die, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
I showed Mac the telegram the next day, and what he said filled the air with dark blue color for 10 minutes. Then...
We can check to see who sent this.
No dice, Mac, I did.
And?
It was sent from a pay phone booth.
I guess you'll be changing your mind about the job now, eh?
What makes you say that?
Well, he's after you, whoever it is.
Yes, I know.
You can back out if you want to.
And what would you think if I did?
Does that make a difference?
No, but there are a lot of men in that tunnel who stand to lose their lives. Mac, you've got to get the police.
I can't, man, I can't. The publicity would ruin me.
All right. Fix it up for me to work down there, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I became a sandhog. For 3 days, I used muscles that thought they'd gone on a permanent vacation. Well, I woke them up, and they woke me up in the middle of the night, aching. Then one day in the tunnel, I was talking with one of the sandhogs.
You know, Dan, you done pretty well, considering you're new at this.
Oh, I ache, Joe. I ache all over.
You'll get used to it.
I don't think so. But, Joe, tell me something.
Sure, what?
What about these accidents down here?
Oh, them.
What about them?
Well, maybe they're just part of the job.
Well, what do you think?
Well, some of them weren't just like accidents, that's all. I mean, well, like a hose break. 2 guys been killed.
And what?
Look out! Hey, you all right?
Yeah, okay. You?
I had to shove you, Dan. That car would have clipped you in half.
Yeah. Look into the decompression chamber.
Huh? Harris? Yeah, Harris.
Oh.
See what I mean? That car didn't look like no accident.
Thanks, Joe. And this is one time I can honestly say I was glad I was shoved.
That's okay. You know something? You were almost as safe to die.
Before leaving the tunnel, I ran down to the spot where that car hit the stop bump at the end of the track. It was wrecked. But in the wreckage, I found something. One of the tags, like the one I had. This one had the number 57 on it. I slipped it in my pocket. Maybe one of the sandhogs had dropped it. Then, just as I was about to step into the decompression chamber, Angus Campbell came up to me and...
Your shift's going off, Don?
Yeah, I'm finished for the day. Almost in more ways than one.
Huh? What do you mean?
Come on, let's get in. I want to get back up.
All right. Tired?
I'm worried.
I can guess why.
Huh?
Look, I know you're no writing a story on sandhogging. I know why you're down here.
Oh, you do?
Aye. Mac's desperate. I want him to call the police, but he won't.
How did you find out about me?
You've been nosing around, then?
That obvious, huh?
Aye, but be careful, lad. Be careful.
Yeah, I will be.
Joe told me about the car that almost got you.
Somebody sent it down the tracks.
Aye.
Angus.
Aye?
You've been with Mac a long time. 30 years.
30 years. Good ones, bad ones.
And yet you stay with a job.
I could have a top job on the surface.
I see. Angus, got any idea who's doing all this?
No.
Harris?
Huh? Why, him?
Mac doesn't like him.
Duck sense, Dad. What point in Harris's ruining his own feather-in-law?
Father-in-law-to-be, Angus.
Still no point?
Then how about the protection insurance to cover the completion bond?
Huh? You mean Mac might be doing this himself to get the insurance?
Yeah, this could be.
No, lad. The insurance wouldn't half cover the loss. No, that's no it.
And why?
I wish I knew. Competitors, do you think?
Who are they?
Brill and Company. But no, they wouldn't. They'd be too easy to find out. Men got a habit of talking. And talk gets around. No, Dan, that's no them.
And then who and why? And why did someone try to kill me today?
You get the answers to those things, Dan, and you'll have the whole thing. Well, we're up at the top.
I'll walk to the shack with you.
No, I'm going back soon.
But I thought you were through for the day.
I've still got lots to do. See you tomorrow.
What Angus said made sense. Couldn't be Mac's competitors, because I checked. They'd been in business a long time, had plenty of money behind them. They'd gotten a bid for another job upstate. And Harris? It didn't make sense either. If he was going to be Mac's son-in-law, it just didn't wash that he'd be sabotaging Mac. So I changed clothes, thought a lot, and then went home. Went out to get some dinner when it hit me. First a twinge, and sudden cramps that made me bend over as if someone had folded me inward with a baseball bat. The building started to spin, twist. Then it got all nice and dark.
There you are. You're all right now.
I know this isn't very original, but where am I?
Take a deep breath. That's it. Feel better?
Lots. What happened? Couldn't have been anything I ate.
You had the bends.
The bends?
Mm-hmm. The tag around your neck tipped us off you were suffering from caisson disease. So we put you in the chamber. Come on, get up. We may need this chamber for someone else any minute.
You make it sound as bad as the housing situation.
Yes, it is, but you're all right now. Next time, don't come up so fast.
But I didn't come up fast. No.
Yes?
Nothing. Nothing at all. Thanks a million, Doctor. Well, it had me. Good. I knew I came up slowly. Angus had been with me. Oh, but that couldn't be. Not Angus. The next day I went back to the job. I had just put on my coveralls when an idea hit me. I searched in my pocket.
Lose something, Dan?
Huh? Oh, no, Joe,
It's easy to drop something out of these coveralls.
What's the number of your tag, Joe?
Tag? Oh, the one we all wear in case we get the bends on top?
Yeah.
502. Why?
Got it on?
Sure. Always wear it. Here it is.
Uh-huh.
Why? What are you getting at?
I don't know. Listen, I'm going back for something I forgot. I'll be a little late on the job. Tell the section boss for me, will you?
Sure. Where you going? You're all hepped up.
Yeah. I guess I am, Joe. I'll be back. I went to see Mac. Told him he'd have to go into the tunnel that day and supervise operations. He thought I was crazy.
Me? What for?
To force your opponents into the open where we can get a shot at them for a change.
I don't get this.
Look, they're going after you, but by accidents. Things like that.
So?
But if you're in the workings, they might be tempted to wreck the entire tunnel with one stroke.
You mean by going after me?
That's it.
You want me to lead with my chin like that? I'll call the whole thing off first. Lose the contracts. Money isn't everything. Exactly.
You're right. But men have been killed down there. You've got to think of their lives, too.
I do.
Then get down with me. End this once and for all. Force them into the open.
You're going, too?
Yeah, because I've got an idea. But I can't prove a thing until we see the last play. I was leading with Mac's chin, and I knew it. But mine was plenty sore, too, and that made me feel a bit better about it. Mac knew he had no choice, and so he decided to go with me into the tunnel. I went to my job, and it was a ticklish feeling knowing that any minute something might happen. Something that would make Joe, Mac, Angus, any one of us, the third to die. Or worse. Then...
Hey, Dan. What was something funny?
Funny what?
I could have sworn the mud down here wasn't this deep before.
What do you mean, Joe?
Look. Stand still. Look around. The mud's coming up. It's getting high.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Joe, the pressure in here must be going down.
Yes. Dan, if it gets too low, that wall will come in on us. The whole river will be in our lap.
Come on, let's get to the gauges.
Dan, what's the matter?
Pressure's going down in here.
Come on.
There's nothing wrong with the gauges. They read the right pressure.
But they can't. The mud's getting higher.
Look, the men are coming in. They've seen the mud coming up.
But these gauges...
Hey, there ain't no air being pumped in. The gauges are stuck. Jammed. Somebody jammed them so anybody reading them will think the pressure was okay.
Get to the emergency compressors.
Pressure's dropping fast. Get to the compressors. Get them on.
I got them.
Watch the gauges.
We're getting pressure now.
What's the matter? What happened?
Angus, somebody jammed the pressure gauges to make it look like we had enough in here.
Jammed? Well, save for those emergency compressors, we'd have been done for.
What did you say, Angus?
I said the emergency compressors.
You said save for the emergency. Save for. Funny way of putting it, Angus. Either in words or on a telegram.
What's the matter with you?
Where's your tag?
Huh? Well, right here?
Yes, with a new chain. So is your tag I picked up in that cart yesterday. The cart that almost killed me.
You're crazy.
And you weren't anywhere around a minute ago.
I was coming in here.
Dan, what you trying to say?
There's your saboteur.
Man, you're crazy. Stark raving crazy.
Yeah? And you went back down yesterday to decompress yourself after I left the chamber. You didn't turn on a decompression valve for me on the way up.
You're crazy, man.
Not crazy, Angus, because you were the only one who could have played that trick on me. Get me out of the way by failing to turn on the decompression valve. You and I were the only ones in that chamber.
Hey, he's running back to the shield.
Get him. Get him before he gets the compressors. He'll wreck him.
Got him down.
Good.
Dan, I never can thank you enough. But to think that after 30 years, Angus would ever do a thing like this.
Mac, don't waste time even thinking about it. Let's go finish this tunnel instead.
Gee, what was the matter with him, Mr. Holliday?
Jealousy, Susie? You see, he'd worked with Mac as a foreman. Then he saw Mac rise from a foreman to the owner of a big company. For 30 years, every day he'd go into the tunnel just an employee, while Mac stayed on top, the big boss.
And it kind of made him, well, jealous, huh?
To put it mildly, yes.
Golly. Well, that makes up my mind for me, Mr. Holliday.
Congratulations, Susie.
Huh?
But what do you mean?
I quit.
Huh?
In about 29 years.
Oh. Good night, Susie.
Next week, same time, through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville. Three to Die is an original story by Mr. Sandville, adapted for radio by Russell Hughes. Original music is composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker. Production is supervised by Vern Carstensen. This is a Mayfair production from Hollywood. Watch for Alan Ladd in his latest Paramount picture.
Welcome back. Once again, we have another sandhog story. You'll remember that Let George Do It had a very similar storyline a few weeks ago. We got a comment saying that, the Shadow actually did a sandhog story as well. It wasn't quite this. It had some similarities. One possibility I might suggest is that the same writer, just because writers tended to write for different shows, that the same writer wrote at least the Let George Do It and the Box 13 script. Seems like it might be a possibility. But this apparently was something that could be sold and used on different mystery shows, because it is a pretty interesting scenario, as well as as well as a unique way to try and commit murder. All right, email from Colin. Hey, Adam, I love the show, especially let George do it. I heard on the podcast that you were looking for a new radio series to air, and I want to suggest Candy Matson. The show is very witty, and the mysteries are good as well. Also, I'm going to recommend Casey Crime Photographers, as others have. It's a great show. Well, thanks so much for the recommendation, Colin. And as I said on Friday, Candy Matson is definitely on my radar screen, and I will be listening to some Casey after Christmas. Or after Easter, excuse me. Well, Jeff Regan, when it first started out, began as Joe Canto, detective, and then was changed to Jeff Regan. Now, we don't know whether they changed leads or they just changed the name of the show. But this episode, we meet Joe Canto, and the part is played by Barton Yarborough. For those of you who are fans of Dragnet, Barton Yarborough is pretty significant. He played Ben Romero, Joe Friday's first partner on Dragnet. At this point, Yarborough was known for his roles, mainly in the Carlton Morse series, One Man's Family, the longest one, a soap opera. But he also did I Love a Mystery and I Love Adventure and Adventures by Morse. All three of these series, as well as Hawk Larrabee, a wide variety of other performances. This role of Joe Canto would become a recurring role, and we'll hear at least another one or two appearances by Mr. Yarborough here as on the Jack Webb run of the show. And there we kind of get a feel for what might be ahead, just a little bit more than a year away. At this point, it's about 10.5 months before Dragnet would premiere in 1949. So this will be a pretty fun performance. I think the first time these two were together was they made an appearance in Escape together, and they also did another show, a pilot called 3-4 Adventure. So I doubt they were total strangers, but this is an interesting mixture that would be a great success when applied to Dragnet. Well, we're going to get into today's show in just a moment. Before we do, I do want to encourage you, as you make your hosting decisions, you got a business, you got an organization, you need a website. Remember, 1&1, it's got more than 9 million customers, and they do that by offering a great product at a great price. To learn more about the services, including domain names, personal services, small business, and large business, go to greatdetectives.net and click on the 1&1 banner on the right side. Or go to hosting.greatdetectives.net. But now let's go ahead and get into The Lady with the Golden Hair here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
When Anthony J. Lyon cashes in on somebody's trouble, it means money for him. For me, it means work. I'm Jeff Regan, the Lyon's private eye.
Here's the kind of program you've been waiting to hear. Hard-boiled action and mystery as told by Jeff Regan, investigator. So stand by for trouble. Stand by for suspense. Stand by for adventure. In tonight's story, The Lady with the Golden Hair. And now, here's Jack Webb as Jeff Regan.
Well, this is the way it started. I was sitting in the Lion's den waiting for him to get off the phone so I could ask him about my expense sheet on that New Orleans thing. He was playing the usual games with his lawyer, and just about the time he hung up and turned his chair my way, the office door opened.
All right, Regan, what do you want? Aha!
A little curly-headed man, about 40, dressed in a black suit, was standing there. He was holding a stack of $50 bills, a gold-headed cane, and a red card in one hand. In his other, he had a black derby with a hole through the top of it, a pair of suede gloves, and a white carnation. He stood there, looked at both of us. The Lion looked at the $50 bills. I looked at the little man.
Aha! You are Mr. Lion, no? I, Max Vladimir, have come to see you unappointed. There you are.
My name's Regan. This is Mr. Lion.
Aha! You will do it.
Won't you sit down, Mr.
Max Vladne Max. 1642 Mulholland Drive, Hollywood 28, on Imperial Studio payroll. Time I do not have. I will not sit. I demonstrate. See you. That flower I do not need. This, a ticket because I too long park, I also do not need. Cane I place here. A gift from my grandfather. I keep that. Also gloves. Now, what have I left, gentlemen?
Quite a bundle of cash, Mr. Vladimir.
Yeah. From bank I just arrived. Also this I do not need. For you. All for you.
Well, Mr. Vladimir.
Now, what I have. You I answer myself. Bullet hole in half. See you.
Oh.
Is not finished. 1, 2, 3.
Those look like 38 slugs. Where'd you get them?
Out of doorway, I dig them where I'm shot last night in my home.
Who's shooting at you, Mr. Vladney?
This, if I know, I shoot back. I have no enemies. Everyone is madly in love with Max Vladney. I must buy new hats. Cannot buy new hats. Kindly, you will guard my body from dying.
Of course. You've certainly come to the right place, Mr. Vladney. If your life has been threatened, you can depend on International Detective Bureau to see that no harm comes to you.
Therefore, it is so. We see.
I understand perfectly.
Well, if somebody shot at you last night, why didn't you call the police?
Mr. Regan meant to ask who recommended you to International.
I explain. In Imperial Motion Picture Studio, where master of makeup, Max Vladney, who is great, is imported to create beautiful faces from skinny skulls and fat necks, is much newspaper. Free sometimes for agents to press. Hollywood police might think because I work on great gun epic, tie my rope tight, is free trick for agents to press. But is not joke. To you I come to take no chance.
Yeah.
In I am, Mr. Regan.
Of course you're in, Mr. Vladney. And Mr. Regan here will stick right by your side until we can get to the bottom.
Now, wait a minute.
If I have to, I'll use every man on my staff to protect your life, Mr. Vladney. All of the resources of International Detective Bureau are behind you. Regan, I'm entrusting you with Mr. Vladney's life.
Already better, I feel. We start.
And call me, Regan. Call me.
I know. Call you if I run into trouble. Come on, Max. Well, you can see how it was. Max Vladney's car was parked in a red zone in front of the building, and there was another ticket on it. He tore that one up, too. On the way out to his house, I tried to get a little more information, but it didn't come to much. He couldn't figure out why somebody was shooting at him or who was doing it. It was about 6 o'clock when we pulled up in front of his house on Mulholland Drive, one of those little places with a big sun porch in front of it and an egg-shaped swimming pool in front of that. He was pulling things out of his pockets, looking for the key to the front door when it happened.
See what I tell you, all the time shooting at Maxie, someone.
All right, get on.
What I tell you, my heart is full again of hope.
All right, shut up. You aren't hit.
But he's frightening.
Well, unless he's got a machine gun, he can't fire anything more.
Wait, where go you? You leave Max to be killed.
I'm going after him. Stay right here. You'll be all right. I started for the heavy brush outside the clearing of the house where white gun smoke still hung around the trees. And then I saw him. He was a gray-haired man, stocky build, glasses, about 100 feet away, running down the hill waving a gun. I went after him, but I couldn't get a clear shot. Oh, he was quite an acrobat. He dived over a wooden road bracer and went skidding down the embankment. By the time I got there, he was climbing into an old Chevy convertible, and he took off in a cloud of dust. I couldn't see the license plate on the car.
Terrible, darling. Something like this happening to you. Oh, Max, why would anyone want to do such a thing? It's beyond me.
I got back to the house 10 minutes later, and there was a black convertible in the driveway and a very blonde girl in the doorway. She was digging the new slugs out of the woodwork with a penknife. Max was lying on one of the beach chairs.
Oh, Terry.
When the blonde girl saw me, she pulled off her sunglasses and held out her hand.
How do you do? You're Mr. Regan. Did you kill him?
I got away.
Oh, and I am again to be shot at.
You say he got away, then you saw who it was.
Part of him. Who are you?
Oh, you beg my pardon. This is Hilda Graham. You have seen her in pictures. The hair, I have seen her different. She's my wife, Holmes.
Did you see anybody?
Well, I heard the shots as I drove up and found poor Max by the door.
He's got to stop this business, Mr. Regan. He's got to stop. Next time, maybe...
Well, it certainly does have to stop, Mr. Regan. Max, why, he's the finest makeup artist in the world. It'd be a great loss to everyone in Hollywood if anything ever happened to him.
You see? Am I valuable? Did I not tell you?
Yeah. Tell me. Where's your phone?
Oh, in there, in my private workshop, study, where I have to live. Use it, please. Call Mr. Lyon and stop the shooting.
Oh, Max, darling, it's all so terrible. After all you've done to me, and now I should be able to do something for you, and I feel so helpless, darling.
Lion.
This is me. I'm calling from Max's. Somebody just threw 6 bullets all over the place.
What? Is Max all right?
Didn't even come close.
Oh, good. Now, the Treasury Department tells me he paid $20,000 last year in income tax, and he can afford a little protection.
Well, whoever it is got away. I think we ought to turn this over to the cops.
The cops? And let them do for free what we're getting paid to do? Not on your life, Regan.
What about his life?
We'll worry about that, too. Now, listen. I'm sending Joe Candy out there to give you a hand. Now, this Ladley's a first-class gold mine as far as I'm concerned, and that means as far as you're concerned.
I don't care what you...
Until then, do anything you want. So long as you stick by Maxie and don't call the cops.
That's figured. Fair label.
Roof folding, Mr. Regan?
Yeah. You want one?
No, thanks. I've something much better than that at my house.
I'll bet you have.
I live all alone in Toluca Lake. End of the canyon.
I'll remember that when I get thirsty.
Who do you suppose is shooting at Max?
You tell me, lady. I just met him.
I thought you said you saw whoever it was.
I did.
Well, aren't you going to look for him or send out an alarm or whatever you do?
Yeah, whatever we do. Don't you think you ought to be in there holding hands with Max? He's had a hard day.
Max? Oh, he's resting now. Do you think he's the kind I'd really have something in common with?
I wouldn't know, lady.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was just leaving. I have to be at the studio early tomorrow. If there's anything I can do at all, I'd be only too happy to cooperate.
Yeah, well, why don't you start by giving me those slugs you were digging out of the doorway?
Oh, I completely forgot about those. Here, I meant to give them to you.
Thanks, I'll need these.
Really, whatever on earth for?
Comparison test. The ejector marks, the firing pin dents. You can tell if they were fired from the same gun if you want to look into it.
And, of course, being a detective, you want to look into it.
That's right, I want to look into it.
Well, Mr. Regan, it's been nice meeting you. I know you'll take good care of Max. If there's anything I can do...
Yeah, I'll give you a ring.
Bye, Mr. Regan. Till we meet again.
I followed her out the door and watched her pat Max on the head, kiss him on the cheek. And then she slid under the wheel of that convertible like she'd been built right along with it. That famous gold in the hair was blowing behind her by the time she got onto the main road.
Be careful, careful. So lovely she is, Mr. Regan, huh?
Yeah, Maxie, she's just fine.
For her, too, you must keep me alive. She needs me.
Yeah.
What now?
We wait for another guy.
Aha, reinforcers. I like you, Mr. Regan. Already better, I feel.
Only me, Regan. Take it easy.
Oh, Canto. Come on in. What took you so long?
I stopped by police ballistics on the way out. I had them 38 slugs that Max brought in checked.
Oh, well, I got some more for you.
Well, I found a winner. Gun belongs to a feller named Pete Berger. Ain't no permit on it. He done 6 to 18 in San Quentin once for robbery. Sprung a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Address?
Yeah, a place on Figueroa right off of Sunset. Here.
Thanks. Well, he was around again this afternoon, shooting things all over the place.
Wonder what the connection is.
I'm going to find out before Maxie does. You take over, Joe.
Okay, where's our clay pigeon at?
Roosting in there. Now, keep your eyes open, Canto. I'll get back as soon as I can.
Oh, take your time, son. Joey the Canto is on the job.
Yeah, I feel better already.
Hey, do you know how to play Carolina in the morning?
What about Carolina in the evening?
Well, if there isn't a stranger in our midst, boy.
Get a look at that. Will you white straight go out?
Curly-haired.
They sure shine. It's got big feet.
Yeah, awful big feet. What'll it be, mister? Mom champagne or beer?
Neither one, lady.
Well, we ain't got either one for you, copper.
You picked wrong tonight.
Flossie never picks them wrong. I can tell by your feet. You're paid by the city or you're a private peeper and somebody else pays you. Makes no difference to me. All spell copper. What do you want?
No fuss with you, Flossie. I'm looking for Pete Berger.
Who?
Pete Berger. This is his last address.
Ain't never heard of no Pete Berger, and neither has anybody else. And he ain't never lived here, and you got a wrong steer.
That door lead to rooms upstairs?
Yeah, that door leads to rooms upstairs.
Mind if I take a look?
I mind a lot of things, Seamus. And taking a look is one of them.
All right. This Pete Berger you don't know and never heard of was throwing a lot of lead around yesterday and today, and I'm going to take a look anyway.
Wait. Hey, you can't go up there.
I was only halfway up when a man in a gray sweatshirt backed over to the top of the stairs. There were 3 red holes just above the center of the sweatshirt. He turned around and tried to say something. I saw what was going to happen, and I hugged the side of the banister.
Oh, Pete! Oh, Pete, honey.
She ran over and was kneeling beside him, holding his head in her arms, rocking back and forth. Yeah, you guessed it. It was the same man I'd chased all afternoon, and he didn't live 5 seconds.
We'll return to Jeff Regan, investigator, in just a moment. But first, here's an important message from the Adjutant General's office. At no time in our nation's history has it been more important to develop an outstanding Army medical department. Without an adequate nurse corps, this cannot be accomplished. And nurses are still needed to fill the estimated requirements for 1948. If you're a graduate registered nurse, over 21 and under 45, you are invited to apply for a commission in the Army Nurse Corps Reserve. If you are selected, you may choose either active duty or inactive status. Apply to the Adjutant General, Washington 25, D.C. And now, back to the story of the lady with the golden hair. And Jeff Regan, investigator.
Well, after he came falling down the stairs at me and Flossie had a good cry over him, there wasn't anything to do but to call Central Homicide. They got there a few minutes later and went over the whole place, taking pictures and prints. Finally, a wagon pulled up, took what was left of Pete Berger down to the morgue. Detective Lieutenant Salvatore Vendetti, up to Homicide, asked everybody a lot of questions, and shipped a couple of people downtown for a couple of different things, and finally got around to me.
Regan, I think you ought to get yourself a new job. Every time the lion growls, you wind up with a corpse someplace and somebody has to ask you questions.
That wasn't my idea, Sally.
I might have to book you on technical charge.
Oh, stop it, will you? You know I didn't have anything to do with him getting shot.
When the next car named Pete Berger gets topped off just before a private dick gets around asking him a few questions, I got to ask the private dick some questions myself, or else the chief is going to ask me some questions. Make sense?
All I know is that somebody's been shooting at a client of mine.
Mm-hmm. And that somebody's Pete Berger. How do you know?
The bullets came from a gun owned by Pete Berger, so I came down to see him.
Only he walks out all loaded down with 45 slugs and dies before you can say hello. Isn't that the bunk? Who's your client, Regan?
Do I have to tell you?
No, but you will.
Company policy.
Company policy. Confidence in a client, Regan.
Can you arrest me for anything?
Depends. Material witness, maybe.
Yeah. While it's pending, I'll get a hold of the lion, he'll get a hold of Harry Presidio, and then I'll bet you $10 there'll be a writ of habeas corpus at the station by the time you get me there.
All right, you're clear. This is a murder case, Regan. That's a serious crime in anybody's town.
I don't know any more than I just told you, Sal.
You know the name of your client? Okay. Why was Pete shooting at him?
That's what I was going to ask Pete.
Oh, now just exactly where does that put us?
My client's safe and sound in his home, and Joe Canto's keeping an eye on him.
When Canto was pounding a beat for the department, some guys got away from him.
A lot of guys get away from a lot of cops, but not when the cops watching. Canto's good at that. You know him.
Oh, sure. It's a thought.
Well, it's no good.
Before Pete Berger went to San Quentin, he was never very handy with a gun because his eyes were so bad he couldn't see his hand in front of his face.
He didn't hit anything yesterday or today, but he was sure trying.
Now, Flossie told me Pete's been playing stuntman in pictures, making a buck at it. It seems he learned all his tricks while he was in the clink. They have a nice gym up there. They never tell what they'll do next. Still, can't understand why he'd all of a sudden go around shooting at somebody.
You figure it's Sally
maybe there
Umley.
was something personal and that Pete had to do it. And whoever Pete was shooting at got kind of sore. Turn around and plug Pete tonight, huh?
My client's home, safe.
Sure. Canto's good. Almost forgot. Pete Berger was a perfect setup for a wise guy. An ex-con who done 15 years, who learns his lesson, wants to make a straight dime, gets mad when anybody bothers.
Blackmail.
It's been done before. Pete had a good, healthy bank balance. I guess he was saving up for his old age. But some wise guy finds out Pete's a con, says, I'll tell you, boss, unless you kick in. Then maybe Pete starts shooting to scare him into shutting up. Make sense?
Sounds like an old fairy tale,
But
Sally.
screwy enough to be the answer. Only this wise guy Pete's shooting at thinks Pete might be meaning business. So he just comes over here tonight and plugs Pete.
And who's the wise guy?
Your client. You aren't going to tell me his name?
I can't involve a client in a murder.
Oh, yeah, company policy. I almost forgot. Regan will find out in the morning. We got some lawyers, too.
I know.
Couldn't tell me now?
I'll phone you in an hour, Sally.
Okay. Okay, Regan, you can talk to him first. But phone me.
Good night.
Night, Regan. See you around.
My watch said 4 o'clock by the time I got to the hills back of Laurel Canyon and started up Mulholland Drive. The usual fog was in the usual places, doing the usual things to trees and houses. And when I pulled up in front of Max's house, one light was burning in the window. The rest of the house looked dark. Everything was quiet. The first thing I noticed was cordite. It smells black, and it means that guns have been fired. The whole room was full of it. Max Gladney was lying half on the floor and half on the table he'd used for a workshop. A bottle of spirit gum was spilled on the floor along with some false blonde hair and a cracked wig block. He had one free arm around a white plaster cast of a head, just like it was a doll. There were 2 blue holes in the middle of his forehead. I just stood there looking at him when I heard a noise in back of me. It was Canto, and he was on the floor at the foot of the bed.
Oh, no, don't try to move me, Regan. I've been laying here waiting for you. It's in my lungs somewhere. I don't think I got any blood to spare. Joey boy let you down, huh? It happened an hour after you left. I don't know who done it. A lot of noise in Max's room, and I come in, and the next thing I know, I'm taking a slug myself. Hey, call me a doc, will you, Regan? I got a date tomorrow night. She's been trying to get rid of me. Does it give her a good excuse? Guess Lionel'll be mad, huh? Call me a doc, Regan, right quick.
Well, I made a lot of phone calls before it was all over. Hollywood Receiving Hospital, Windetti, Central Homicide, and I got the Lion out of bed and told him what had happened. He said he'd meet me at the hospital. I hung around a while and talked to Windetti. He didn't have much to say. When he got through poking around, he gave me a lift as far as the hospital. The Lion was standing around the hall when I got there. It was the first time I'd ever seen him look tired.
Hello, Regan. I just talked to the doctor. This is going to cost plenty.
How bad is it?
$25 a day for a room, plus surgery.
No, I mean Canto.
Oh. Well, bullet penetrated upper lobe of his right lung. Here, they pull this out?
45 slug.
Who shoots 45s that good?
Lots of people.
Same kind of people who go around killing Pete Berger and Max Vladney.
Yeah.
Candle getting himself shot's going to eat up every penny we might have made on this thing.
Is money all you ever think of?
What else is there to think about? If you got it, you're fine. If you haven't got it, you're nothing but a bum.
One of your own men is lying in there wondering if he's ever going to live or die, and he took that slug because you sent him on the job.
Everybody dies. I'll give him a citation.
Oh, you big pile of blubber. I ought to push you out a window.
Now, talk like that isn't going to help anything.
No, but I know what
now,
is.
Wait a minute, Regan. This is a police job.
Oh, now it's a police job.
Yeah, like I told you. And you can't go running around sticking your snoot into a couple of killings and giving International a lot of bad publicity.
Now, get this, Fatso. I'm going out and find the guy who plugged Canto.
Now, you listen to me.
And I want it down in the books and the papers and any place else that an International operator brought in a guy who killed one of their clients and shot one of their men.
Now, I won't be responsible for anything that happens.
Okay, if you don't like the way I do things, you can pull my license right off the wall and get yourself another boy.
Hey, where are you going? Come back.
Well, Mr. Regan, when I saw you at Max's yesterday afternoon, I didn't think you'd come by for that drink at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, come in. I was just having coffee. I have to be at the studio for an early makeup job.
You look all right to me the way you are.
Well, you can be nice. Will you have some coffee?
No, thanks.
Oh?
I just stopped by for a minute. I'm afraid I have some tough news for you.
Max. Something happened to Max.
He's dead.
Oh, no. Not Max. Oh, Max.
Somebody shot him 3 hours ago.
Why would anyone want to kill Max?
That's what I'm going to find out.
Max expected me to marry him. So many plans. What can I do to help, Mr. Regan? What can I do?
All right, now look. A smart cop named Wendetti is going to be knocking on your door pretty soon. He's going to ask you a lot of questions about Max. Give me the answers first.
Would you mind terribly if we sat down? Max was all I had. I want to be near someone.
Sure.
I know I'm acting silly about this. What is it I can tell you, Mr. Regan?
Did Max ever mention a man named Pete Berger?
No. Never heard that name before.
Well, he worked at the same studio. He was the one that shot at Max yesterday afternoon.
And he killed Max?
No, he's dead, too. He was shot to death an hour earlier. I was there.
I'm not very good at this kind of thing. What are you trying to tell me, Mr. Regan?
Both of these killings were done by an amateur, and not very good jobs. But there had to be some reason.
I don't know.
I've been in the business a long time, lady. Too long. People kill for money or love or just for the crazy feel of blasting a gun at somebody.
There's been a lot for you.
You know, if you find a reason, you find a killer. What kind of work would a makeup man be doing at home?
I don't know. Max always tried to improve his work. Because that's why he made the money he did.
He might have made a plaster cast of a head so he could study a face.
I suppose so. Yes.
Your face?
Yes, I suppose so. Why?
Oh, it's a nice face. I've seen it in pictures.
Those press agents think my hair is nicer.
Yeah, it is. Long, golden hair.
It feels soft and warm. The way you hoped it would feel.
Yeah, it does.
And my lips? I don't feel bad doing this. I never did love Max. I was indebted to him. I was terribly ill several years ago. He helped.
I can see why he felt the way he did about you.
Daniel. I like the way you did that.
I know what Max had been working on. It was something for you.
Really?
He was holding a plaster cast of your head in his arms when I found him. Of course, there was no hair on it, and it looked kind of funny.
Don't say that! Don't ever say a thing like that!
Yeah, you killed a poor ex-con because he bungled a job you blackmailed him into doing. You shot him last night because I was going to talk.
Judy, why would I do...
Killed Max, and while you're at it, you pumped a slug or two into Joe
You
Canto.
said there's got to be a reason.
Every newspaper in the country's going to carry it. Golden hair is really as bald as a fresh egg.
Shut up! Shut up! Don't you ever say anything like that in front of me!
Break in, too. Now, come on. Let's go.
No. You mustn't tell find out about my hair, please. Please don't tell them about my hair. I couldn't stand that. Oh, please, you know how nice I can be.
Lady, you're a bum. Well, Max had been trying to get her to marry him, and she didn't want to marry anybody, so she killed him. The police stenographer scratched his head on that one until I explained it was her hair, that long golden hair. Only it wasn't hers. It was a wig that Max had fixed up for her. She'd lost all hers when she was sick and couldn't stand the thought of anybody going around knowing it wasn't her own. Well, I guess you run into all kinds. A couple of days later, I saw Canto at the hospital. He'd had some transfusions and a lot of other things. He was coming along fine. He was reading a paper when I walked in.
Oh, Ray. So what is what, huh?
Hi, Joe.
I've been reading about that Hilda Graham. Too bad they don't take her picture without all that pretty hair. Serve her right.
Yeah. How you feeling?
Peachy. Regan, how long we been working for the line?
Too long.
How many people been killed and messed up in that time that me and you knows about personally?
Too many.
One thing I can't get through my noodle. Why don't we get some other kind of a job? Real estate or movie extras or something. Why do we do it? Why do we do it, Jeff?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know.
Jack Webb is featured as Jeff Regan, with Wilms Herbert as Anthony J. Lyon. It's CBS same time next week for trouble, suspense, and thrilling adventure with Jeff Regan, investigator. The role of Max Gladney was played by Hans Conried, with Barton Yarborough as Joe Canto. Betty Lou Gerson was Hilda Graham. Jack Crucian was Wendetti. Marlo Dwyer was Flossie. Jeff Regan, investigator, is written by E. Jack Newman, produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes, with special music by Del Castillo. This program came to you from Hollywood. Bob Lamont speaking for CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. A very solid Jeff Regan, and a nice guest appearance by Hans Conried there. That was his character of Max was an incredible guest star. Really almost stole the show in the scenes that he was in. Well, we got some comments to get into. This one comes just directly off the website in regards to Jeff Regan. Bill writes in, your podcast of Jeff Regan, Johnny Madero, and especially Pat Novak have forced me to revise my opinion of Jack Webb. His radio performances are often clever, usually well-crafted, and generally more nuanced than they seem. Consider the timing and focus required to spit out a mouthful of Novakian similes without sounding insultingly flip. It is unfortunate that many of us know Webb only as television's Detective Joe Friday. Webb's performance on the 1960s version of Dragon offers a little clue to the dynamism that characterizes the actor's radio work. Thanks for helping to set the record straight, and always glad to do that on Jack Webb. Nice. So many things I think about Webb, as well as history in general, are kind of impressions that aren't based on facts. So when you got the recorded facts, that just makes it easier for people to figure it out. All right, last comment, just a simple great show-off podcast, Alley. That's much appreciated. All right, well, we're going to wrap up the show. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Next week, another episode of Jeff Regan. Again, any comments, send them to me, box13 at greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And you can call and leave the show a voicemail. The number, 208-991, Great D. That's 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off. David writes in, "Hi, Adam. Just wanted to thank you for all your awesome podcasts and movies. Will there be any more Holmes movies? And will there be any Charlie Chan movies? Once again, thanks for all the time you take to put these podcasts on and keep all us old-time radio nuts happy. Many thanks, Dave the Green Man Haroon." Oh, well, thank you so much for your comment on Facebook, Dave. In answer to your question on the movies, yes, we're going to have Sherlock Holmes coming to you on April the 11th. We'll be watching The Woman in Green. We've got a total of 4 of the Rathbone Bruce Sherlock Holmes films, but there are several other incarnations of Holmes that have also wonderfully escaped into the public domain, including the 1950s television series, which was absolutely great. So you'll be getting a lot of Holmes. You might even be getting Sherlock Holmes video episodes after we finish the radio. In answer to Charlie Chan, I would like to bring Charlie Chan movies. Really, before I do that, I want to do it at the same time I'm doing the Charlie Chan radio shows. I want to establish which radio shows I'm using and really get a grasp on what we have that we can play for you in that series. And then I want to do a little bit of due diligence, because most websites agree that some of the Charlie Chan films are in the public domain. However, they're in disagreement. So I'll need to do a little bit of research, but I would really like to do Charlie Chan. All right, well, before we do get started, I do want to encourage you. If you want to be able to choose what you watch, not have Time Warner or network tell you what shows to watch and determine your availability, try Netflix. Netflix gives you access to great TV shows and great movies, many available through Instant Watch. Otherwise, you can have unlimited DVD viewing starting for as little as $9 a month. Find out what millions of subscribers have already learned. Try Netflix free for 2 weeks. Go to greatdetectives.net, click on the Netflix banner, go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. But now let's go ahead and get into today's episode of Let George Do It, The Perfect Specimen.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. The Perfect Specimen, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice, danger is my stock and trade. If it's the kind of trouble you can't handle without confidential help, you've got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, as a doctor, I've had to tell many people that they were doomed to die. Well, today, I was told the same thing myself. I was even informed of the time and the method. All the facts were there, except who is going to kill me and why. I suppose I should go to the police, but they would only scare the killer off. Next time, he may not be thoughtful enough to warn me. I don't know what you charge for a service like this.
Don't know what you charge for a service like this, but whatever it is, I'm willing and able to pay. My executioner hasn't allowed me much time, so you can understand I'm anxious that you meet me at my office as quickly as possible. It's signed Dr. Norman Penford.
Here, Brooks, here's something that makes no sense at all.
Well, how can you say that, George? A man expects to be murdered, and the notion doesn't fill him with too much enthusiasm. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's the note within the note I'm talking about, Angel. Yeah, why did the so-called executioner announce the date of the event and apparently supply a blueprint of his intentions? Is he some kind of a newborn fool?
Well, maybe he's so sure of himself he thinks he can't get caught.
Now, that's the kind of self-confidence I like to see in people, Brooksy. Except in murderers. What was the address of Dr. Penford's office again? Tell me, Dr. Penford, you're a surgeon, aren't you? Not a psychiatrist.
That's right, Mr. Valentine. Why do you ask?
For a very good reason. The note Dr. Penford got. Read it again, will you, Brooksy?
Oh, yeah. Notice of execution. Time, Tuesday night. Place, wherever you will be. Method, one unerring fatal shot. Executioner, someone who hates you very dearly. Guess who?
Unsigned and typewritten.
Yes, I see what you mean. It does sound mad.
Doctor, can you think of any patient who'd go this length because of, some kind of a grudge?
No, that's inconceivable.
You know, this could be a crank note.
Do you believe that, Miss Brooks?
No, somehow I don't.
Okay, let's start from scratch, Doctor.
Yes?
Before I can do anything about this note, I've got to know something about you.
Oh, there's not much to tell. I have my regular hours at the hospital, and I see a few people here at my office, which is just a part of my home. It's really an uneventful sort of grind, day in and day out, except...
Yeah?
Well, my son Eric is home from college for the summer. It makes this house a little brighter than usual.
And your wife, Dr. Penn?
I'm a widower, Miss Brooks. My wife died 21 years ago when Eric was born.
Oh, I see.
I suppose this picture on your desk is your wife's.
What?
This picture.
Oh, I should have put that away. Wonderful to think that Eric never resented it being there.
Well, why should he?
Well, you see, this was my first wife.
Oh. We're learning more and more, aren't we, Doctor?
I didn't even think of telling you about Jane.
Oh, Dr. Penford, in a case like this, when you don't know anything, everything becomes important. What about your first wife?
Well, Jane and I were married less than 2 years. I haven't seen her since the divorce. The only reason I even know that she's still alive is that I send her an alimony check every month.
I see.
I met Eric's mother about a year later. I had a small practice in Kenton. That's a little mining town not far from here.
Mm-hmm. All of which doesn't conjure up the figure of a crazed, egotistical murderer.
Yes, I know. But as I said, my life has been rather humdrum.
All right, Doctor, let me take it from there. From what I can read into this letter, I'd say that if the person who wrote it carries out his threat, it would be on Tuesday night, as promised.
That's right, Valentine.
And you're hiring me to see that it doesn't come off, as promised.
If you can.
Oh, Dad, Oh, sorry, I didn't know you had patients.
Oh, not at all, Eric. These are two friends, Miss Brooks, Mr. Valentine, and my son.
Oh, Miss Brooks,
How do you
Mr.
do?
Valentine, I know I'm probably interrupting something, but look, Dad, how about doing the town with me tonight? We'll start with a country club, and then, well, who knows?
Sorry, Eric, I'm afraid not.
Now, what do I have to do to make him come out of his shell? Dad imagines I have a score of debutantes just waiting to make an evening of it with me. The truth is, Dad did say Miss Brooks, didn't he?
His very words.
Well, then, you might care to join me.
Eric.
Oops, I didn't mean to go plowing through the bounds of propriety, but it seemed like an idea, an inspired idea, Miss Brooks.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been fun, Eric, but I had a few other ideas myself.
Well, good try. Nice to have met you, Mr. Valentine. Now I'd better go out and shower. 6 sets of tennis in this sun is like a Turkish bath. See you later, Dad.
Well, that's quite a hunk of man you've got for a son, Dr. Penford.
Isn't he, though?
But we seem to have gotten off the subject. Tomorrow is Tuesday.
You may be sure I haven't forgotten.
You understand, Doctor, I'll have to go about this any way I see fit.
Of course.
So I'll be in touch with you then. We'd better get started, Brooksy.
I can't imagine why you're here, Mr. Valentine. I have only one interest in Norman Penford. The alimony check he sends me each month.
Well, you're very frank, to say the least, Mrs. Penford.
Well, we thought if you knew he was in danger, you'd be glad to give us some facts about his past. And it might help us.
Oh, I can give you a beautiful fact that will help you to understand Norman perfectly.
Yeah?
Just after our son was born, Norman left us, and we haven't seen him since.
But we just met Dr. Penford's son.
He told us Eric was a child by his second marriage.
Oh?
He didn't mention anything about another son.
It might have slipped his mind.
Now, wait a minute. I want to get this straight.
Please, Mr. Valentine, don't raise your voice. My son Wesley is working in the next room. He doesn't like to be disturbed while he's writing his book.
Mother, Mother, who's there?
Oh, no one, Wesley. Just some people.
Friends of your father, as a matter of fact.
Mr. Valentine, don't go in that room.
My father? What are you talking about?
Certainly you should be interested in your father if he happens to be in danger.
Wesley, I tried to keep these people from disturbing you.
My name is Valentine. This is Miss Brooks.
How do you do? Forgive me if I don't get up. Now, about my father.
Go on.
I don't feel I have one. As for his being in danger, Miss Brooks, you can understand my lack of concern.
Yes, but...
Now, get out, both of you.
See? Now you've upset him. Never mind the pen, Wesley. I'll pick it up.
Sorry. My father isn't really worth any such display of emotion on my part. Now, I would appreciate it if you left.
Okay. That's the way you want it.
I think you can find your own way out.
I'm sure we can.
Now, that's what I call a beginning with all sorts of possibilities.
Hmm.
Angel, I think this calls for some friendly cooperation from Lieutenant Riley.
Valentine, I'm a public servant. I have a deep aversion to notes that threaten murder, but why, in the name of everything that's holy, didn't this doctor come straight to me?
Oh, now you're not going to pout, Lieutenant. George explained all that.
I can't take care of this thing myself, Lieutenant. It's a big brownstone house with plenty of ways of getting in and out. And I only have 2 eyes.
Oh, okay. Oh, for the love of... Yeah, Riley speaking. Yeah, let me have it. Well, how long has this been going on? 9 months. $1,250 in cash every month? Yeah, I see. Okay, thanks a lot. Well, your hunch was right, Valentine. Dr. Penford's been drawing out $1,250 a month regularly for the last 9 months, and in cash.
Uh-huh. Wouldn't you say that smells slightly like blackmail?
And to high heaven?
You'll have those men, Valentine. 5 of my best men. And once Dr. Penford comes home from dinner tomorrow night, no one will get in or out of that place without us knowing.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Shut up.
George, you mean all we're going to do now is wait till tomorrow?
Oh, no, Brooksy, no. You've got a date tonight.
Have I? Oh, how nice.
With Eric Penford.
What made you change your mind and call me, Claire?
Well, shall we call it a whim, Eric?
No.
Well, shall we say I just wanted to see the country club?
No.
Shall we say a girl can't always admit how she feels with other people present?
And you wanted to be alone with me tonight, didn't you, Claire?
Eric, let's go back inside and dine.
No.
Please, my wrist.
Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. You must know how beautiful you look now.
Not unless someone tells me.
You probably think I'm just another college kid home for the summer. Maybe you don't take me seriously.
Oh, I didn't say that, Eric.
Then what do you have to say?
Eric.
Now, don't be afraid to fall in love with me. I can take care of you, Claire. There won't be any question of money.
There won't?
I don't even have to go back to college. I get $1,250 a month, come rain or shine.
Well, that's a lot of money. Where does it come from?
No, that's not important, darling, but it'll always be there. I've taken care of that. What do you say, Claire?
I don't know what to say. You've got to give me a few minutes to think it over. No, not with you around. That wouldn't be fair.
Oh, Claire, darling.
It won't be long.
Yeah, Brooksy?
I have only a minute to talk.
Go on.
Eric just told me he gets $1,250 every month.
The exact amount Dr. Penford takes out in cash from the bank.
Yes.
Well, that's a new one for the book, Angel. A son blackmailing his own father.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Meanwhile, a word about thrift. If upkeep for the family car has been putting too big a strain on your pocketbook, listen to this. It's a money-saving tip from Ben Franklin, a very real Ben Franklin who's a printer and who lives in San Francisco, California. Here's what Mr. Franklin says about RPM motor oil. Quote, I changed to RPM in 1941 and haven't spent a nickel on engine repairs since, unquote. That's 7 years without the need of engine repair. Try RPM motor oil starting tomorrow in your own car. RPM is compounded to keep your engine cleaner, to guard hot spots, to protect every inch of precision-made metal from its worst enemy, internal rust. No wonder this premium oil came out on top in a survey of Western motorists, preferred 2-to-1 over any other motor oil. So for longer car life with more economy, switch to RPM motor oil tomorrow. Get it at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations, where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. Well, when a respectable doctor hires you to protect him against a threatened murder summed up in a typewritten note, you'd think after that your client wouldn't be likely to lie to you. But instead of the one acknowledged son, you find there are two, and son number one is apparently blackmailing his own father for a fancy sum. So with time growing short, you make your way to the little mining town of Kenton.
Mrs. Wisniewski, you've lived here in Kenton a long time. You remember Dr. Penford, don't you?
Oh, good doctor. A very good man. Too bad he not stay here.
Well, maybe you remember his wife. Was he happily married?
Married? Plenty girls wanted to marry doctor. But he was no married man when he lived here.
Wait a minute, what's that? Are you sure?
Oh, yes, very sure. Of course I remember Dr. Penford, Mr. Valentine.
Would you have any idea why he left, Mrs. Hogan?
Well, confidentially, it was the morning after Annie Pulaski died, after having her child.
Oh?
Yes. And the boy died stillborn, too, Dr. Penford said. I'd swear that's what took the heart out of the poor man and made him leave town.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Hogan.
Never forget that night. Mr. Hogan and I lived next to the Pulaskis at the time. I remember us saying to each other when we heard the little one cry out in the night, sure ain't it wonderful to hear the sound of new life coming into the world.
I thought you said...
I know, Mr. Valentine. The next morning, Dr. Penford told us the baby didn't even live to breathe. Well, must have been our imagination.
Yeah, it must have been.
No, I assure you, Mr. Valentine, no marriage license has ever been issued to Dr. Norman Penford. Not here in Kenton. Our records are very complete.
I see. And you're also sure there's never been a birth certificate for an Eric Penford?
Well, if there were, we'd have it here. Yes, indeed. Any other information?
Yeah. When's the next train back to town? Penford, let's stop kidding each other.
What do you mean?
You've hired me to keep you from getting killed tonight. There's only a few hours before sundown, and you still want to go along with those lies you told me.
Lies?
Such as Eric being your son. You know that's a lie.
What? Well, how do you know that?
You never even had a second wife, Doctor.
Valentine.
Oh, yes, you gave me nothing to work on, so I had to find out these interesting little details for myself. Those couple of years you spent in Kenton told me a lot. Now, just who is Eric? Is he the son of Annie Pulaski? Well, Doctor, you left suddenly the next day.
All right, Valentine, I took the child. It was wrong, but think of the things that I gave him. He never wanted for anything. What would he have had in Kenton? Life in an orphanage? And then facing a world that was against him every inch of the way? Oh, no, I saved him from all that.
Yes, very fine motives, Doctor. You took a boy who wasn't your own, called him your son, gave him every opportunity. Still, you haven't seen or spoken to your real son for more than 20 years.
Wesley? What do you know about him?
Just something else I found out.
Oh. Well, the truth is, Valentine, I never thought of Wesley as my son. He belonged to his mother, and I left it that way. And then when I thought I could have a son like Eric, I couldn't resist the temptation.
He's repaying you beautifully, isn't he?
What's that?
He's holding you up, isn't he, Dr. Penford? He knows he's not your son.
Oh, there were so many lies to tell, and he kept digging and probing, and it had to come out at last.
$1,250 a month. Why don't you go and tell him where to head in?
Oh, it's not that easy, Valentine. I've boasted of that boy all his life. How strong and tall and beautiful he is. You just don't let a truth like this come to life all of a sudden.
All right. We got that all straight. Now, how does it tie up with that note?
It doesn't. It has nothing to do with it.
That could be another lie, Doctor.
But it isn't, Valentine. This thing between Eric and me is entirely personal. I'll never admit to another living soul that he's been blackmailing me. And about tonight, all I know is what I've told you, and I need your help. You wouldn't walk out on me now, would you?
No. Tonight you're going to get every protection a man can expect. But tomorrow morning, get yourself another boy or talk it out with the police.
Thanks, Valentine. I'm just worried about tonight.
Not still working, Dad. You ought to take a little time off. Oh, hello, Valentine.
Hi.
Swell swimming at the pool today. I couldn't find anybody to give me any real competition.
You never can.
I understand, Eric, that you're also on the boxing team up at college.
Oh, it's nothing. I just happen to have a left jab that seems to hit in the right place at the right time.
You mean something like this?
Oh! What are you trying to do?
Well, maybe a right cross like this, champ.
Oh! Mr. Valentine!
Dad, what's he trying to do? What's happening here?
That, Eric, was to make up for all the times your dad didn't take you across his knees. Don't worry about tonight, Doctor. I'll be around.
Well, how you doing, Valentine?
The good Lieutenant Riley. Your presence makes this quite an occasion.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure you were happy with our service. If you were displeased, you might decide not to put your confidence in the police department again.
The subtlety of your sarcasm, Lieutenant, is a beautiful thing. But kidding aside,
Yeah?
the way you've got your men planted, I can't see how anybody can get in that house without being seen.
Oh, it's nothing. It's just a little trick I learned after more than 20 years on the force. I even have Hennessy trailing Penford to his restaurant.
Oh, I didn't miss that either, thanks. I told the doctor to accept no calls and hold her for the night. Once he's inside, he's as good as sealed up. Nobody will be able to get at him.
Well, if you want me, I'll be hanging around for a while in the patrol car down the street.
Oh, here you are, George.
Hi.
Here's a sample of all the letters on Dr. Penford's typewriter.
Good. Let's get over here under the street lamp.
Oh, hey, wait a minute, George. Isn't that the doctor coming home now?
Yeah, so it is.
Is that you, Valentine?
Yes, we've met before, remember, Doctor?
Oh, I guess my mind was wandering. Good work. You don't know what a difference it makes to know that you're on the job. Good night.
George, Dr. Penford didn't seem himself at all. He's always so careful and precise in his manner.
Well, in his place, how would you feel on a night like this, Angel? Come on, let's get back under that street lamp.
George, that's the threatening note Dr. Penford received. I thought that's why you wanted me to use his typewriter.
How do you like this, Brooksy? The E's are all the same. And the broken corner on the W's and the O's slightly higher than the rest of the line.
Eric. He would have had access to the typewriter.
No time for guessing games. I've got to get to the lieutenant.
Yes.
Sorry to disturb you, Lieutenant.
Huh?
But something new has been added.
What's that?
The note Dr. Penford received was written on his own typewriter.
What are you talking about?
That's a fact, Lieutenant.
Stay parked right here where you are, Miller. I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. Come on, Lieutenant. We'd better talk to Penford. And fast. Dr. Penford?
Dr. Penford?
There's a light in his office. George, he's...
Yeah.
Let's have a look at him.
Why don't we? I can still feel his pulse.
Miss Brooks, get on the phone. Call an ambulance.
Okay.
I don't see any gun around, Lieutenant, but he was shot.
Oh, that's impossible, Valentine. Nobody could have come in this house without us seeing him.
And I know he was all right a few minutes ago when we talked to him.
I don't like repeating myself, but this is impossible. Still, it happened.
I'm all right now, Lieutenant.
Doctor, for the love of heaven, what made you do a thing like that to yourself, huh?
You guessed it, didn't you, Valentine? How?
Well, the lieutenant here kept saying impossible. No one could have gotten in to shoot you. So I accepted that simple fact. It was impossible. And that only left you, Doctor.
And I thought there couldn't possibly be a flaw.
You were shot before you arrived at the house. That's why you were so vague about things, so anxious to get inside.
Doctor, how did you know you weren't just going to drop dead in the street?
Well, I was pretty sure. If a doctor thinks about it long enough, he can find a way of shooting himself and still have a reprieve from death for an hour or so.
What?
I shot myself just under the ribs, upward, toward the liver. Then I got rid of the gun. The bleeding, you see, would be internal. And I knew with enough effort I could make my way home.
And the verdict would be murder, Doctor. Isn't that why you hired me in the first place?
Yes.
Look, Doctor, I know this isn't the time for a lot of questions, but I still want to know why you did it.
Insurance, Lieutenant. They wouldn't pay off on suicide, but they would on murder. It was very important that somebody get that money to make up for, so many, many things.
It may have seemed as simple as that to you, Dr. Penford, but it was all wrong. The only way you could have made it up to your son was to be alive.
My son, he probably wishes me dead. You can't blame him.
I don't think any of us can understand what really is going on in Wesley's mind.
I'm just a simple cop, Doctor, but if you loved your son so much, why did you ever leave him? Why all this business with Eric, who isn't even your own flesh and blood?
Let's just say it's a way a man thinks sometimes when he doesn't know any better.
Oh, George, we're here. Is it all right to come in?
Yeah, come on in, Brooksy. Maybe now you can understand how your son feels, Dr. Penford.
Wesley.
Yes, Father.
You cared enough to come.
I wanted you to know I'm glad it didn't work out the way you planned.
I left you and your mother when you needed me most. How can you forgive me? How can you ever understand that?
It isn't as difficult as you think, Father. It's just like when I sit down to write, I want things I say to come out beautiful. When they don't, I feel ashamed and want to run away. You must have felt like that when I was born.
What is it, Wesley?
Would it be all right if I could be alone with my father?
Huh? Well, of course, young man, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine, would you wheel me over to his bed?
Hey, you know, Brooksy, it's strange the things you don't think of when you're on a case.
What do you mean, darling?
Well, when we first saw Wesley, for instance, remember how he pardoned himself for not getting up from the desk when we came in? Then when he dropped his pen, how his mother rushed to pick it up for him so he wouldn't have to move?
Strange the things you can't possibly think of or even imagine. I mean, a father feeling that way about a crippled child.
Well, it's not an easy thing to justify, Angel. I suppose it's as Dr. Penford himself put it. It's the way a man thinks sometimes when he doesn't know any better.
Yes. And when you pin all your faith on a perfect physical specimen like Eric, and he turns out to be a gold-plated heel, you begin to wonder what you've done with your life.
Then you dream up a last desperate scheme to undo a terrible wrong.
I wonder if it's possible for the Penfords to find any real happiness after all these years.
Well, it looks that way, Brooksy, if you can believe this note I just got. It winds up, "Thanks for everything," signed Norman, Jane, and Wesley.
It's the second day of your vacation trip, and you're all set for some more happy motoring miles. But your car isn't. Feeble battery, or maybe just a plain dead battery. To avoid such a bleak moment, better get preventive service before you start out at your independent Chevron gas station or standard station. They'll be glad to test the battery's water level, terminal, cables. If it's a new battery you need, to assure instant starts wherever you motor, they have a quality Atlas that's made exactly for your make and model of car. On Atlas batteries, you'll find certified power capacity embossed where you can read it. Certified power that exceeds the requirements of the Society of Automotive Engineers. Atlas batteries for passenger cars are warranted for 21 months or more. So don't wait for your car's battery to let you down flat and unexpectedly. Get superior battery service tomorrow at a standard station or independent Chevron gas station where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. Next week, when you tune our way for another adventure of George Valentine, you'll hear...
We're up against a remarkably agile ghost, Brooksy. I got tapped on the head twice before I could even turn on a light.
But where did this thing go? It couldn't get out.
Oh, all I know is somebody tried to give me the same kind of scalp massage the late Mr. Mitchell got.
Oh, what goes on here?
I don't know, Brooksy, I don't know. But we're not leaving this haunted Victorian nest until we find the answer to that very pertinent question.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George with Frances Robinson as Claire. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little, Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Herbert Rawlinson as Dr. Penford, Hy Averback as Eric, Noreen Gamil as Mrs. Penford, Don Diamond as Wesley, and Martha Wentworth as Mrs. Hogan. The music is composed and conducted by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. You know, this is the very first episode of Let George Do It that I heard. And I didn't even catch the whole thing. I missed like the first few minutes of it on Antioch. But it really hooked me into the series. Incredible writing talent here. The way they plotted this out, they did better here than I think they did on The Unfit Mother, which I liked as well, but this one they really established a very good mystery and mixed in a believable family drama. And it's hard to do that. You'll find a lot of shows where you just basically, like Pat Novak, which I love for its own reason, but pretty much most characters in there are just pretty horrible. Here you create some believable characters in a really tough spot, and you are able to write a detective story around it. So incredible talent there, and I got to tip my hat to the writers. This is the first show, and it was great to hear it again. All right, well, we have an email, a Facebook, and a podcast alley comment, so we'll go ahead and get all those, starting with the email from Sarah, who writes, I love the show. I've enjoyed both movies so far, and I'm looking forward to more to come. I just want to put in a vote for the following shows: Sam Spade, Casey Crime Photographer, and Rocky Jordan. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. I think that's about the second person I've had mention Rocky Jordan. Amy writes in, I love the show on Facebook. I have two addictions: Facebook and the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio podcast. You can And those who aren't fans can combine those at facebook.greatdetectives.net. But she writes, keep them coming. They are great, and even the ones that are not my favorites are very entertaining and contain great insights into the history of America and the issues that were important and relevant to the times. And finally, excellent variety and focus on the best radio detectives and great commentary brings back my childhood. Thank you. Well, and thank you so much for your comment and your support all this month. I don't know where we'll finish as we wrap up the month of March, but we finish. But as of right now, we're standing pretty strong. 23rd on Podcast Alley in the month of March, and we may go higher, may go slightly lower, but pretty nice for a show that hasn't even been out there 6 months. So thanks for all your support. 150 fans on Facebook, or 115 fans on Facebook. So wonderful growth, and appreciate it all, and we'll look forward to continuing it into the next quarter. Well, I got an email from Jeff regarding the Paramount Theater. He writes, please, not only is the episode introduced as from the Paramount Theater in Hollywood, but previous episodes have discussed the theater specifically in relation to war bond drives. The Paramount is still a going concern, opened in 1926 and remodeled and reopened in 1941. A lovely place, and would be fun to watch a Rathbone Bruce Holmes movie on its screen. Well, I did look, and it's kind of difficult just because of just because there are so many different theaters. Plus, there was a court ruling that forced some of the movie companies to get rid of their theaters. But I think I have found the location, and it looks like it's on Melrose Avenue there in Los Angeles. And it does look like a pretty interesting place to watch a movie, and it has been open for some time. So thanks for the clarification on that. Got a comment from Murph who writes, it was a real pleasure to hear Rathbone doing a few lines from the magnificent Agincourt speech. The only issue I had was that he did so little of it. That's one thing to remember about Basil Rathbone. His first love really was the theater. And he did several episodes. One show he did quite a few guest appearances on was Theater Guild on the Air. Most of his performances for Theater Guild on the Air have unfortunately been lost. He did some of the ones that were lost were Julius Caesar, That Winslow Boy, and Lo and Behold. So he was a big lover of the theater. It was his first love. And after he found out he'd been typecast as Sherlock Holmes, that's when he went back to. So I think he really enjoyed that episode. Harry Bartell, we promised we were going to talk a little bit about him next week. He was actually a very important figure in radio. We've talked about Virginia Gregg and her sheer number of roles. Well, Harry Bartell actually had a total of 10,000 radio appearances. And Digital Deli breaks it down. 180 appearances on Gunsmoke, 60 appearances in Escape, 15 in The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, 30 plus in Dragnet, 20 plus in Let George Do It, 45 on Suspense, 120 episodes in Johnny Dollar, and 60 plus episodes in Have Gun Will Travel. So he's appeared in a lot of shows we've listened to, are listening to, and a couple are on the old-time radio daily westerns. Bartell made some television appearances. Perhaps as most famous, he did in the 1950s Dragnet. He played the priest in the Christmas episode. Beyond that, in his later days, he was one of those radio actors who did remain around and was an active participant and made himself readily available to the old-time radio community. Went to a lot of conventions. He hosted a few sets. I think he even did a radio show. old-time radio shows. So a very versatile actor joining the cast here, and we're going to hear him. We've probably heard him already, and I just have not mentioned it. But we're going to hear him a lot as we listen to this radio. He's one of those voices that absolutely just made radio work. I did find this story of how Harry Bartell got his job on Sherlock Holmes. And this comes from Vintage Radio Place. And one of his friends writes, Harry he said he literally walked into the announcer's role on Sherlock Holmes. That was the reason I got that job, a fluke. That he had a huge audition, and every name announcer in town was over at CBS. I walked into the foyer, and I couldn't understand what was going on. I asked the secretary. She said Edna Best was conducting an audition for the announcer on Sherlock Holmes. I said, may I go in and say hello? I'd worked with her as an actor. I said, hi, Edna, and started to leave. She said, aren't you going to read? As long as you're here, pick up the script and read. And that's how I got the job. We'll also hear Bartell later on as the longest-lasting Archie Goodwin on Nero Wolfe. Made it through 10 episodes. May not sound like an accomplishment now, but when we get into Nero Wolfe, you'll understand. We have some good commentary coming up after the show. But before we get into the show, I do want to just encourage you, if you like Sherlock Holmes, I know what else you like, Netflix. Netflix allows you to sample a wide variety of Holmes films. You can watch all 12 of the Rathbone Bruce movies right in your home. You can get Jeremy Brett's ITV version. And you can even get the spoofs. Sherlock Holmes in every form imaginable, available to you to watch, along with all your other favorite classics at a reasonable price that you can afford, starting at as little as $9 a month for unlimited streaming and unlimited movies. Just go to greatdetectives.net, click on the Netflix link, and you can try it out free for 2 weeks, or go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Now we're going to get into Harry Bartell's premiere episode on Sherlock Holmes, The Limping Ghost. We'll go ahead and we'll listen, and then we'll come back.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another of his fascinating stories about his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. You know, we're really happy to be back with you once again, and we're looking forward to getting together at this time every week from here on out. And I hope you won't mind if every once in a while I sort of get a word in edgewise about Petri wines. You know, and I really mean this, Petri wines are wonderful wines. For instance, right now, I wish I could give you a glass of Petri California port. You could hold that Petri port up to the light and look at its clear, deep red color. You could smell that luscious grape aroma. And best of all, you could taste that Petri port. What a flavor. That Petri port just sort of rolls around on your tongue, and oh boy, is that ever good. Try Petri port after dinner some evening, or try it when some friends drop in. You can serve it proudly because, after all, the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wines. And now let's look in on our good friend Dr. Watson and see if he's expecting us.
Come in, Mr. Bartell. You're just the man I've been expecting.
How are you, Dr. Watson? It's good to see you again.
Thank you, my boy. It's very nice to see you again, too. I've missed our Monday night visits during the last 3 months. Sit yourself down. Would you care to join me in a glass of port?
Well, thanks, Doctor. That'd be nice. You know, it seems to me after our summer vacation, a toast to the great Sherlock Holmes would be in order.
That's an excellent idea. Here you are, young fellow.
Thanks. You propose the toast, Doctor.
To Sherlock Holmes, master detective and loyal friend, whose adventures have brought considerable, shall we say, fame to a certain retired doctor now living in Northern California.
I'll drink to that.
Well, now, suppose I might as well get on with tonight's story.
Which particular adventure have you selected, Doctor?
One that I call The Limping Ghost.
Sounds exciting. And, as usual, you find me saying, how did it begin?
In Baker Street on a windy December evening at the turn of the century. A young, white-faced boy
sat in front of our blazing fire. And as he told us his strange story, the flickering firelight danced weird patterns on the walls. The young man was Alexander McMorris, the 7th Earl of Lochnair.
The Earl of Lochnair? Say, didn't I read in the papers the other day that the 8th Earl of Lochnair had been killed in an airplane accident?
Quite right, my boy. Even in this day and age, the tragic history of violent death seems to dog the footsteps of the Lochnair family. But to return to my story. On that December night in 1900, we heard the whole history of the limping ghost of Lochnair. The first Earl had lost a foot at the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513. In spite of this terrible handicap, he fought on valiantly until he died on the battlefield from loss of blood. From then on, right until the time this story begins, the limping ghost, clad in a suit of armor, always appeared at Lochnair Castle before and after the death of the current Earl. Yes, Mr. Bartell, it was a strange story that Sherlock Holmes and I listened to that night. A story of death and horror over the centuries, punctuated by the limping clank of ghostly armor.
Milady, I have terrible news for you. Your husband, the Earl, was killed in the explosion, destroyed Lord Darnley.
Milady, the Guy Fawkes plan to blow up the House of Parliament has failed. Your husband is in the Tower of London. They say he's to be hanged, drawn and quartered.
Madam, I regret to inform you that your husband, on my instructions, has been arrested for murder. I have no doubt that he will hang.
And that's the story of the Lochnairs, Mr. Holmes. You were instrumental in sending my great-uncle to the gallows, a fate which he richly deserved, I'm told. So it seemed only natural to come here to Baker Street and consult you now that I'm in trouble.
I shall be most happy to do anything I can to help you, sir.
I don't remember anything about your sending the Earl of Lochnair to the scaffold, Holmes.
Well, he did, Dr. Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And the servants have always sworn the ghost really did walk at midnight on the day that he was hanged.
Indeed. Now, sir, I suggest that you tell us what problem brought you here.
The ghost is walking again, Mr. Holmes. You know what that means.
According to the legend, that the present Earl will die.
Exactly. And as I'm the present Earl, you can see why I'm rather worried.
Am I to understand that you've actually seen this ghost yourself?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. The night before last, Betty, well, that is, Miss Noel and I were sitting in the dining hall in front of the fire when we heard a strange sound up in the musicians' gallery. We looked up and in the moonlight saw a ghostly figure in armor limping towards the staircase.
Oh, gracious me. My dear sir, you're certain that you really saw it? Moonlight can play strange tricks, you know.
There wasn't any doubt about it, Doctor. We both saw and heard it.
What did you do?
I started to go towards the stairs, but as I did so, Betty screamed and then tumbled to the floor in a heap.
Fainted, I suppose.
Yes. While I was reviving her, the ghost disappeared.
Who's staying with you at Lochnair Castle at the moment?
Well, there's Betty Nolan. She's the sister of James Nolan. He looks after my estate. Betty and I are engaged to be married.
Oh,
thank you.
Yes, indeed. Anyone else staying with you?
Yes, a distant cousin of mine, Jared K. McMorris, an American. He turned up in England a couple of months ago with his son Walter. They're both with me at the present.
A distant cousin?
That's right, Mr. Holmes. Actually, they're descendants of a more than usually black sheep branch of the family. I don't know how long the old man's going to be with us, though. If you ask me, he's a dying man.
How do you say that, sir?
As far as I can gather, he's been wasting away for years. It's only a question of time before his strength fails him entirely. I was hoping perhaps you could take a look at him, Dr. Watson. That is, if I could persuade you and Mr. Holmes to come and stay at the castle for a few days.
Well, what about it, Holmes?
It's an intriguing problem, Watson. The current Earl of Lochnair would seem to be in danger. A cousin of his is dying of an obscure disease, and the ghost of Lochnair Castle is walking again. Yes, it's an irresistible invitation. I see no reason why we can't leave on the Scotch Express tonight. It's been quite a heavy fall of snow here in your absence, young man.
Quite so, and judging from the color of the sky, there's more to come.
Very angry looking.
Oh, now, as we round this bend, you'll be able to see the castle. Ah, yes. There you are, gentlemen.
Magnificent.
Yes, it's a fine place, all right, Doctor, though it cost me a great deal in upkeep. As a matter of fact, I only have one wing open. It's always been something of a problem to get servants to come and live here.
See, the local villagers have a great respect for the Lochnair ghost, you know.
What servants do you have at the castle at present?
Cook housekeeper, Mrs. McClintock, fine old lady who's been with me for 6 years now. And then there's old Tammas. He served my family for as long as I can remember. Well, as a matter of fact, he is now. Hello, Tammas.
I'm glad to see you back, my lord, and that's a fact.
Oh, thank you, Tammas. Oh, these gentlemen are Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Good day to you, gentlemen.
How do you do? Good day, Thomas, good day.
Before I get the trap round to the stables, I may as well break the news to you.
Yes? What's happened, Tammas?
It's your cousin, my lord. Poor old Mr. McMorris. He's dead. What? Died early this morning. God rest his soul.
Dead?
I'm very sorry that I arrived too late to be of any help.
Well, thank you for telling me, Tammas. Oh, you may take the trap round now.
Aye, sir. I'll bring the baggage early.
So he's dead. Well, I can't say it's unexpected, but it is a shock, nevertheless.
I'm sure that it must be, particularly as you yourself told us you saw the ghost of Lochnair the night before last.
In which case,
Watson, I think we may reasonably expect another visitation. Perhaps before the night is over. Shall we go in?
This is Miss Nolan, my fiancée, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and Dr. Watson.
I'm very glad to meet you.
How do you do, sir?
And this is her brother, James Nolan, the manager of my estate.
How do you do, sir?
How are you, Mr. Nolan?
Much better for seeing you both up here. I'm sure it won't take you long to lay this ghost business by the heels.
Oh, well, I trust you don't overestimate our abilities, Mr. Nolan.
Alec, you've heard about your cousin, of course.
Oh, yes, my dear. Tammas told us as we drove up. Where's Walter?
He went into the village with the doctor and the body of his father.
Oh.
He should be back soon.
How's he taking it?
Very quietly.
Too quietly, if you ask me. Those Americans are pretty demonstrative people, you know, and Walter's been no exception. But he behaved very strangely this morning. When the doctor told him his father was dead, he just said, now things will start to happen, and then shut up like an oyster. I can't make head or tail of the fellow.
Yes, quite so, quite so. Mr. Holmes, I expect you and Dr. Watson would like to go to your room?
Yes, I must confess.
I think first I'd like to take a look at the musician's gallery, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, of course. Would you excuse us, darling?
All right, Alec.
It's in the dining hall here.
They must have been very hospitable people in those days. 50 or 60 people could eat at that table.
Yes, Doctor. Needless to remark, we hardly ever use the room nowadays. There's the musician's gallery, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, yes, I see. How do we get up there?
I'll show you. See, there's a stone staircase behind this tapestry here. Follow me. Watch your step. It's quite narrow, rather dark.
Watch your head, Watson, old chap.
Oh, don't worry about me, Holmes. I'm perfect. Oh, I say. Must have built these stairs for pygmies.
Oh, yes. Here we are, gentlemen. This is the musician's gallery.
By Jove. It must have made a pretty picture in the days gone by. A little string orchestra fiddling away up here and tumble of the Scottish nobility bobbing and floating round in the intricacies of a Highland schottische or a stately gavotte or something.
Where does that door lead to?
To the bedroom wing.
And that's where the ghost appeared from the other night, I suppose.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Uh-huh. The door's ajar. You generally keep this door unlocked, sir?
Why, no. But the key mysteriously disappeared about a week ago. James is having a new one made. So I must remind him about that.
Alec, boy!
Oh, we're up here, Walter. We're coming down. That's Walter McMorris. My dead cousin's son.
Poor fellow, this must be a dreadful day for him.
Yes, I'm afraid this is going to be a rather painful interview. Oh, hello, Walter. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Sherlock Holmes, sir. I've heard about you and your friend, Dr. Watson.
Walter, old man, I'm dreadfully sorry about your father.
Are you now? Isn't that nice of you? Well, you'll be sorry enough when you hear that I'm going to take you to court and prove that I'm the real Earl of Lochnair.
Oh, Walter, you're out of your mind.
Am I? No. Father was out of his because he kept quiet all these years. But I'm going to have my rights. I've looked up the records. I've had genealogists working for months. And I've got all the facts that prove you're an imposter.
Oh, man, what are you talking about?
You know well enough. When Sherlock Holmes here sent your great-uncle to the gallows 20 years ago, the title and estate should have come to my father. When I leave here tomorrow, I'm going straight to the finest lawyer in London.
Man, if you believe this, why have you said nothing about it till now?
Because I'm smart. I found out a thing or two since I've been staying here. And one of the things I found out is that your precious fiancée and her brother wouldn't look twice such if it weren't for your money and the title.
Shut up.
You'll find out. She's a smart little filly, and she knows what kind of a track she's running on.
You just...
My compliments, sir. A very professional uppercut.
Yes, and a very well-deserved one. Offensive scoundrel.
Sorry about this. Please don't say anything in front of Betty. It'll only upset her.
I quite understand. Come along, Watson. Let's go and find our rooms.
Holmes, it's nearly dinner time. Why are we wandering about here in the dark instead of having a glass of sherry with the others in the library?
I'm a conscientious practitioner, Watson. I like to earn my fees. It occurred to me that a further examination of this dining hall might prove profitable.
Well, personally, Holmes, I think you're wasting your time on this case.
What makes you think that, old chap?
It's perfectly obvious that young American fellow was impersonating the ghost a few nights ago. He knew his father was going to die, and he wanted to build up the legend so as to make his own claim seem more believable.
Well, that's very sound reasoning, Watson. Though to be logical in his deception, he should repeat the performance now that his father is dead.
Well, ghosts only walk at midnight, so why don't we go and have a glass of sherry? What is it, Holmes?
Someone's coming in from the library. The lighted candle. Yes? Who is it?
It's me, Mrs. McClintock, the
Oh, gracious me, you gave me quite a start.
I heard voices and I knew the candles were not alight in here, so I came in to see who it was. You're watching for the ghost, I suppose. Well, you'll no be disappointed, gentlemen, though you may see more than you bargained for. Those that meddle with ghostly things they do not comprehend are playing with something much more dangerous than fire. Fire burns. But the shades on dead people...
Holmes! Look up there, the gallery. The door's opening. It's the ghost!
Aye, here he comes, the poor body. See the armor on him, and the way he's dragging one leg behind him.
Yes, it's really quite an effective impersonation. And the twilight provides most appropriate light for his play acting, too.
You mean it's the young American?
Of course.
Look behind him. There's another figure.
Yes. Dressed in the same kind of armor and carrying a sword. King's foot, Watson.
The ghost has seen him. He's turning. The second figure's raising his sword.
Look out!
Great heavens! He's knocked him through the railings. That must be a 20-foot fall.
Come on, old fellow. Help me open his visor. Yes. It's Walter McMorris, the American. Though from the angle of his head, I would suggest that it might be the late Walter McMorris, eh, Watson?
He's dead, all right, Holmes. Neck broken.
Meanwhile, the second figure has been able to slip back through that door and escape us. Come on, he was dressed in armor. He can't go very fast. Perhaps we can overtake him.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a few seconds, which is all the time I need to tell you about Petri California Muscatel. Ever try Petri Muscatel? It's a wine that looks like sheer gold, and it's made from big, plump, juicy muscat grapes. Boy, pop one of those muscat grapes into your mouth, and you know you've got something delicious. You know that. And you get the same flavor in Petri Muscatel. It's a perfect wine to serve a lady. Women love it. And that best time to serve it is after dinner or on a Sunday afternoon, you know, times like that. But just make sure it's Petri Muscatel, because that's the way to make sure it's going to be good. Remember, Petri. And now back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure and the story of the Limping Ghost of Loch Ness.
Confound it, Holmes. There's no trace of the ghost in the musician's gallery.
We gave him too much of a start, I'm afraid.
Of course you didn't find him. You'll never find him because he's not mortal.
Mrs. McClintock, is the original suit of armor the one worn by the first Earl of Loch Ness still in the castle?
Aye, sir. It's in the library through that door there. I'll take you to it.
Don't bother, thank you. We'll find it. Come on, Watson. Bring that candle with you.
Right, you, Holmes.
If you know what's good for you, you'll stop dabbling in it as your dinner really can.
Holmes, what do you make of the second ghost?
An imposter, obviously.
But who could it have been?
That's what we have to find out, old chap. Undoubtedly someone knew that the American Walter McMorris was impersonating the ghost and used this macabre method to kill him.
But why kill him?
Possibly his claims to the title and estate were valid. Or perhaps some fanatic was so devoted to the Loch Ness legend that he assumed the role of ghost and killed him for his sacrilege. Hold the candle a little higher, will you, old chap?
Yeah. Hello. Here's a suit of armor, Holmes. Lying in a heap on the floor.
On the floor, eh? Whereas it obviously belongs on that stand over there.
It's perfectly clear what's happened. The second figure used this armor and slipped it back in here while we were examining the dead man.
Possibly, Watson, possibly. At least this armor gives us a definite clue, but it limits the field of possible suspects.
How do you mean, Holmes?
Well, it's an interesting fact that the human race has grown definitely larger in the past 400 years. Very few modern men can wear authentic ancient armor like this. For example, take the first item on the top of the heap lying on the floor here. These gauntlets of chain mail. Try them on.
Well, much too small for
Exactly.
me.
Neither you nor I could have worn this suit.
Nor could young Nolan, the estate agent.
Whereas his sister could have done.
Yes, so could Thomas the butler. He's a small fellow.
And if it comes to that, Watson, our distinguished client, the young Earl of Lochnair, is himself a small man.
By Jove, so he is. And he might easily have had a motive. Young McMorris had disputed his right to the title earlier in the day.
But we mustn't jump to conclusions. Nevertheless, you see what valuable evidence this arm has become.
Hello. It sounds as if the rest of the party are on the scene.
Yes, I suggest that we join them without making any reference to this suit of armor. Remember, old chap, one of them in there is a murderer, and we may have to set a trap to catch him.
Are you sure he's dead, Dr. Watson?
There's no doubt about it. His neck was broken instantly by the fall.
It's dreadful. Father and son both dying on the same day.
And you said the real ghost came up behind him, Mr. Holmes, and struck him so they crashed through the railing up there.
I said another figure dressed in armor and killed him, Mr. Nolan.
It was a real ghost. I saw him with my own two eyes. He killed that man for trying to bring shame on the name of Lochnair.
Shouldn't we get into touch with the police?
How can I get a message to them tonight? Have you looked outside? We're almost completely snowed in.
Snowed in. Oh, Alec, I'm frightened.
Hush, darling. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore.
No, at least we have the assurance that the ghost will not limp again.
Why?
Well, the murderer has no further motive for impersonating the ghost. To walk now would be to support the dead American's claims. No. We shall spend a quiet night, and tomorrow I shall communicate with the proper authorities as to my quite definite notions regarding the murderer's identity.
But if the ghost should walk again, Mr. Holmes?
Well, then, sir, I shall know that at last I've encountered a truly supernatural crime and shall retire from the practice of detection.
It's nearly 2 o'clock. You still over there by the window, puffing away that pipe of yours? You know, I can't help feeling that young McMorris knows a great deal more than he told us. A great deal more. The shifty look about him I don't like. Never did trust a fellow who couldn't look you squarely in the eye. Don't you feel the same way, Holmes? Holmes, where are you? Holmes!
Shh. What, Watson?
Where have you been? I thought you were over there by the window. Been talking to myself.
Never mind that, old chap. Get us on in the dressing gown. We're on the last lap of this strange eventful tragedy.
Oh, thank the Lord for that. Perhaps I can get some sleep. Holmes, where have you been?
I went to the musician's gallery and baited the trap. Now it's ready to spring. Don't dawdle, Watson. Come on.
I'm not dawdling. What do you mean you baited a trap?
You'll see for yourself in a few moments. As a matter of fact, I really baited it when I said downstairs that if the real ghost should walk again, I would retire from the practice of detection.
I didn't understand your saying that myself.
Well, I was tempting the murderer to show his hand once more. Come on, please.
Where are we going?
To wait behind the curtain at the foot of the stairs leading to the musician's gallery. And I hope we don't have to wait very long.
Holmes, I'm getting a crick in my neck trying to peer through this wretched curtain. How much longer do we have to wait?
Until our murderer arrives.
You certain he'll come?
Not certain, but hopeful. Extremely hopeful.
You know who it is, don't you?
Yes. But my proof is too thin for a court of law. I must catch him in the act.
Here he comes.
Splendid.
Let's go up and grab him.
No. They walk into my trap.
He's coming towards the head of stairs. Oh! Great Scott!
Exactly. A simple piece of wire stretched across the gallery is remarkably effective, even with ghosts. Come on, Watson. Help me off with this visor.
There we are. Good Lord, it's James Nolan.
Exactly.
What happened?
You walked into a simple trap, my friend. I'm afraid the next trap will be more lethal. for it undoubtedly proved to be the one beneath the gallows.
Well, now that we're headed back for London, Holmes, perhaps you'll settle one or two points in the case that are bothering me quite a bit.
Oh, with pleasure, my dear chap. What are they?
I still don't see what Nolan's motive was in murdering the American.
Oh, that should be obvious. He wanted to ensure that his sister's fiancé would enjoy undisputed title to the name of the estates.
Well, how did you know it was Nolan?
When I examined the authentic suit of armor, you see, it was obvious it had never been worn.
But I still don't quite understand.
Oh, come now, old chap. The suit of armor was in a heap on the floor.
Yeah?
And if it had been hastily discarded, and yet, the gauntlets were on top of the pile, you remember?
Well, that's right, they were.
If the suit had really been worn, the gauntlets would have been the first things to have been taken off, and so would have been underneath the pile. Obviously, therefore, the armor had been disarranged in order to make people believe the real ghost had walked.
Yeah.
After the American's death, the suspects were four: Miss Nolan, her brother, Thomas, the butler, and the Earl himself. Well, I ruled out Mrs. McClintock because, you remember, she was standing behind us at the time of the murder.
Well, I'm beginning to understand. All the suspects except Nolan were small enough to have worn the armor.
That's right. Therefore, only he could have pretended to use it.
Pretended? But he did use it.
Oh, no, my dear fellow. Undoubtedly, he procured a similar one of modern manufacture.
An amazing case, Holmes.
An interesting one, at any rate. And once again, old fellow, I'm forcibly reminded of an old Scottish litany.
Scottish litany? Which one's that?
Oh, you remember it. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord deliver us.
Well, Doctor, that's really a swell story. You know, for a while there, I was beginning to believe in ghosts.
Well, I'm ashamed to admit it, but at the time, so was I.
You know, this sounds silly, but I bet it would be fun to be one of those legendary English ghosts. You know, go around sticking your nose into everybody's business and playing practical jokes like mad and nobody able to figure out who did it. That would really be fun in a way.
Well, you can go around scaring people all you want to, but not for me. I think a ghost leads a terrible life. So, for instance, a ghost can't have the pleasure of eating a nice, juicy steak.
Yeah, or drinking a glass of really good wine.
Ah, now you're talking, young fellow, my lad.
Petri wine.
Yeah, still talking, young
You
fellow.
see, when I say good wine, I always mean Petri wine because you can depend on Petri.
I know.
Why, the Petri family has been making wine for generations, handing on down from father to son, all their skill and knowledge and experience. When you realize they started the Petri business way back in the 1800s, well, common sense tells you the Petri family knows practically all there is to know about the fine art of turning luscious grapes into clear, fragrant wine. Yep, whether you're looking for a swell wine to serve before dinner or with dinner or after dinner, for any occasion, you just can't go wrong with a Petri wine because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Now, Doctor, what story are you going to tell us next week?
Well, now, next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a strange adventure that Holmes and I had in the English countryside. It concerns the apparent madness of a certain Colonel Warburton and the puzzling mystery of two dead dogs.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and is based on an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Crooked Man. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Booth through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station.
Oh, the Petri family took the time to bring you such good wine. So when you eat and when you cook, remember Petri wine.
To make good food taste better, remember...
Petri wine.
This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. You know, it's a bit hazardous to take a guess at voices if they're not specifically in the credits. I've had some situations where people have guessed wrong, and so I try to avoid it. But I got to tell you, it sounds like Mr. Bartell, on his first day on the job, pulled some double duty playing the American cousin in the Sherlock Holmes episode. Now, that's economy. I do think this episode does sound a little better. After a few months off, both Rathbone and Bruce sound better. The scripts sound better. I think the writers definitely needed that summer off they took. And so I'm going to be looking forward to better episodes. This was a pretty nice mystery, though Holmes kind of tricked the audience, which isn't playing clean for a detective, but it's Sherlock Holmes played by Basil Rathbone. We'll let him get away with it. Special thanks to Penny, who put a $1 tip in the old tip jar. Thank you so much. And that's over at greatdetectives.net. And I have a comment from Leanna. I forgot to read last week, but she writes regarding the Purloin Ruby episode. Enjoying the show immensely. I get up early every morning just so I can download the program and sync up my iPod. Keep up the good work. By the way, there is a polka dot wine. It's a Riesling made in California. I get it when I can't find the one I usually get. Oh, thanks so much. I'd commented on polka dot wines, and turns out there is one. Another comment, this one from Podcast Alley. Great show. Keep up the good work. I enjoy your commentary, the shows, and even the Petri wine commercials. It adds to the experience. And just a nice, great show comment from Podcast Alley. Got a nice review on iTunes from Lulu the Penguin. I found this while looking for old-time radio shows a while back and subscribed on a whim. I'm glad I did. Adam is so dedicated, you can tell. And even if his voice gets a bit grating at times and he seems to stutter quite a bit, I find his commentary very insightful. I especially love Box 13 and Sherlock Holmes. I look forward to each new episode, and it makes me wish I'd been alive in the time of radio shows. I've convinced some of my friends at school to listen to this too, and my dad. I'm sure they'll love it as much as I do. Keep up the great work, Adam, and I love your Dragnet podcast too. Well, thank you very much. Regarding Casey Crime Photographer, a topic in recent weeks, and I actually posted a remark that I was kind of surprised of how popular Casey is. William writes in, it took me a few listens, but the show grows on you. It's no Nightbeat, my personal favorite, but it can be entertaining. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and Nightbeat is another great show. And that's what's nice. One thing, I try to be a little bit flexible. I know that Randy Stone isn't technically a detective, he's a reporter, but most of his cases involve some mystery and similar plots to the detective stories, so that's definitely one I'm going to look forward to bringing you when that time comes. Well, we've got one comment. I'm actually going to save it for after the show. I did want to let you know, the show might sound a little different next week because I'm going to listen to the shows, and then I'm actually going to write a script just for next week. It's not my favorite way to do things. But right now we're waiting to get potentially a sponsor and waiting to get the information for the ads in terms of who's going to be sponsoring, and we hope to find that out next week. So for next week, or at least the first few shows, we'll be doing some scripts. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we will get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a second. Before we do, I want to encourage you, as you make your plans, wherever you happen to be traveling, whether you're off to Arizona or to London, remember to try JohnnyDollarAir.com. That's JohnnyDollarAir.com for the best deals on travel. All right, well, we're going to get into today's episode, Skullduggery in Skull Canyon. We'll go ahead and listen to it, and then we'll come back.
I knew when I went to the desert that anyone who plays around with cactus is liable to get stuck. But I didn't remember that another way of saying death is going west.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. at making out his expense account. He's an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Old Caledonia Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Attention, Oscar M. Wheaton, Chief Investment Counsel. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my investigation of suspected skullduggery in the Skull Canyon mine. Or, Mr. Bones, who was that lady I seen you with last night? Or, messing with a mule train is one good way to kick off. Expense account, item 1. 25 cents. Tip to busboy who brought telephone to my table at the Blue Danube Restaurant, Robertson Boulevard, Los Angeles, where I happen to be working on a case. Your call came right after the liver dumpling soup, taking me out of the soup plate and putting me in the soup.
This is the story, Dollar. You make notes and don't interrupt. 2 years ago, this company made an investment in a bona fide working gold mine, the Skull Canyon Mine. That's just outside Twin Buttes, Arizona.
I see.
I said don't interrupt. That's just over the border from Nogales, Mexico. Now, up until 3 months ago, everything was fine. The profits shown by the mine were good. And then suddenly, our returns dropped 50%. However, operating expenses, man-hours, and so on remain the same, indicating there's been no fall-off in the removal of high SAR. Now, there's something wrong. We want you to go down there and find out what it is.
Expense account, item 2. $12.80. I decided that since you'd invited yourself to the table, dinner at the Blue Danube was on you. Oh, in case you're interested in what you didn't have, it was that liver dumpling soup, veal paprikash, curry strudel, and a small coffee. Enjoyed with that case I was working on. An eccentric millionairess who wanted to marry me for her money. She had yes, yes in her eyes, but when I told her I had to say goodnight immediately, she said,
Oh, no.
Expense account, item 3. $120. Burns Lee Flying Service. Charter plane to Twin Buttes, where I checked into the Waterfield Hotel, called the mine, and told the girl who answered that I wanted transportation out there. She said she'd come after me. Having seen too many Western movies, I figured she'd arrive in a buckboard, but instead she picked me up in a Jeep. Hey, slow down, will you? Before my teeth start falling out.
Oh, sorry. I forgot you were tenderfoot.
That's not where I'm tender. By the way, Miss Moreland, how far is it out to the mine?
23 miles.
Oh, no. Is the road like this all the way?
Oh, no. About another half mile out of town, there isn't any road at all.
Oh, if I ever live through this. From now on, I'm taking my bumps in a burlesque theater.
Much better than walking, mister. Say, you said you're out here representing the owner. What's your job?
Well, I'm an efficiency expert.
Oh.
Speaking of efficiency, what's your first name?
Jackie?
Oh, well, in that case, mine should be Gwendolyn. But it's not. It's Johnny.
Well, let's not bother shaking hands on it, pal. Here comes the end of the road. The
scenery was jumping around like a home movie. My teeth were trying to find out how much abuse my uppers would take from my lowers. I felt like I was gradually being hammered down from a tall, thin man into a short, round one. And there I was, caught without my rhinestone-studded motorcycle belt.
Well, here you are. Want me to help you out?
Oh, very funny. Get lost, you little monster. I'll admit I look like a bag of bones, but I'm too young to die. Go on, now beat it.
Oh, be a good dog now. Lie down, Nugget. Down.
Yeah, Nugget, drop dead. This the mine office?
This is it.
Well, Dollar, welcome to Skull Canyon. I'm Doyle, the manager out here.
I'd be happier to meet you if I met you in town.
Mr. Dollar's in a foul mood, Jeff. That ride was a little too much for him.
That ride would have been a little bit too much for Buffalo Bill.
Well, that's how Jackie keeps that figure as trim as she does. Now, come on inside, Dollar. That's where the books are, and that's where the chairs are.
With cushions, I hope.
I'll see you guys.
All right.
Sit down.
Thanks. Oh.
Well, there you are. You'll find all the figures right in that big, fat book. All but Jackie's.
Well, I'm not in any hurry to do my arithmetic. Tell me, what do you think of the results around here? You know more about it than I do. How are things going?
Well, Dollar, I'll tell you, it was going better than it is right now. Mm-hmm. Just a few months back, we worked out a pay vein. I'm hoping we'll pick it up again any day now.
That sounds reasonable. Any trouble? Help, equipment, working conditions?
Well, working conditions could be a lot better, but that's a geographical problem. You see, the mine is located here, and the big water supply is 8 miles west. We haul the ore across the desert by mule train to the smelter. It's cheaper than trucks. We'd have to build a road for them. Not here, hay is cheaper than gasoline. You'd like to take a look at the mine?
Frankly, Mr. Doyle, I'd just as soon climb up a chimney. I hate dark, confined spaces. But since it's part of my job, I might as well get it over with. The entrance into the mine was through an adit, a horizontal shaft into the side of a hill. We rode in on the tail end of a small red dynamite car, drawn by a donkey, junior grade, a burro. It was cooler in there, but I started to sweat the minute we left sunlight and fresh air behind us. I could hear the jackhammers nibbling little gold earbobs out of the quartz rock for the Christmas tree. Then I heard them stop, and Doyle told me why.
Sounds like they're about ready to blast.
Oh, great.
Oh, open your mouth and cover your eyes.
150 yards deeper into the earth, I was beginning to think that mankind is mighty hard to satisfy. The Lord gave us the world's whole surface. Then we had to go and invent gold mines and airplanes. And right then, I'd have settled for an airplane.
Oh, what's the matter, Dollar? You look a little green.
Oh, feel a little green.
Well, look. Take some deep breaths and hold them as long as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, there. That'll perk you up. Well, this is it. Right here is the only place we're working.
It doesn't help. So this is it, huh? Well, let's see the rest of it.
Well, I told you, this is it. This is the only place we're working.
Okay, you guys. Keep it moving. Load that ore. Fill them up. Come on, bend your back.
Well, let's get out of here, Dollar.
Okay, Doyle. I've seen what I came to see. And I also figured I had heard what I came to hear. Dinner that night I had with Doyle and Jackie, and the steak they served gave me a rough idea of what they did with their old burros. Doyle's attitude gave me a rough idea that maybe he'd seen my eyes light up when I heard those jackhammers snorting away in some other part of the mine, just after he had told me that where we were standing was the only place being worked. After dinner, Doyle went back to the mine, leaving me alone with Jackie, which was better than dessert. By the way, Jackie, just what's your job out here?
Oh, I'm just sort of a secretary and bookkeeper and jeep driver.
Uh-huh. How'd you happen to land here in Skull Canyon?
Well, I took the job because I was going to marry the man who was the manager then, Doyle's old boss. I met him in college. He was a mining engineer. His name was Larry Hodges.
Well, what happened?
I was left at the altar. When I got out here, he was gone. Guess he got stage fright and changed his mind. Anyway, nobody's heard from him since. Least of all me. Come on, I'll show you where you sleep.
It was a real romantic night. Old Nugget the dog was carrying on a long-distance conversation with his country cousins, the coyotes up in the hills. The air was soft and warm, and so was Jackie's arm. Stars hung low. And so did my spirits when she bid me good night, after she introduced me to my roommate.
Hiya, Sonny.
An old mule skinner named Kangaroo.
Make yourself comfortable.
Oh, by chance.
Well, better than a sand bed and a saddle pillar.
For a pine shack, this has a mighty fancy floor. What is it, mahogany?
No, tobacco juice. Helps keep out the sidewinders.
What do you mean, help?
Little snake critters crawl in out of the hot sun to get cool. Where are you from, Sonny?
Hartford, Connecticut.
Well, I'll be turned too. I don't reckon it shows through, but I'm a Easterner myself. Come out from New York State 53 years ago. Little town of Prattville. County seat it was.
That's pretty dull.
What'd you say?
Oh, nothing. Say, are you the one that handles the mules on the run out to the smelter?
I'm one of them.
Well, how's chances of hitching a ride with you in the morning?
You'll have to get up early.
All right, then. I'll get up early.
Well, then stop wasting your breath on a lot of dang fool words. Use some of it on the kerosene lamp. Quick! Night.
I lay awake thinking about that jackhammer I'd heard working the supposedly inactive end of the Skull Canyon mine earlier that day. This didn't take too much pounding into my skull before I decided that Doyle was working on a vein for his own personal profit. I also knew that for him to convert the ore into gold, he had to get it to a smelter. So I figured that the mule skinner, Kangaroo, was the best place to start asking questions. It's funny how a sleepless night can sour the beauty of a desert sunrise.
Up ahead, near the mouth of that little itty-bitty side canyon?
Yeah, I see it.
That's halfway rock. Means we're halfway to where we're going.
I'm sorry it isn't all the way rock. I wish we'd get there. Sun's getting awful hot.
Why, it ain't nothing, Sonny. Some days that old sun's got your tongue hanging out your fur. Gets a real nice tan.
How do you stand it? Hey. What's that stomach pump doing way out here?
Stomach pump? What tarnation are you talking about?
That's a clever name for a light airplane. Hey, looks like he's getting ready to give us a buzz.
Hey, mules! Hey, you, Monroe! A steady blast! Monroe! Doggone it, he's the loudest mouth ding-ding old mule I ever did hear. Hey, here he comes. Oh, hold it,
First thing I learned was if you ever want to panic a team of mules, just buzz them with an airplane. The second thing I learned was that little canyon we were approaching was loaded with armed horsemen who came galloping out like they were trying to make history at San Ferran. The gunman didn't do anything to me except hold me at bay, while the plane picked itself a landing and disgorged its one-man air force.
Buenos dias, amigos. Why, you don't look happy to see me. Maybe my friends scares you with their guns, eh? Hey, old man. Who is this new boy who ride with you today?
His name's Dollar.
Right now, I wish it was Hopalong Cassidy.
Well, let me introduce myself. They called me El Puerco. That's because I look like a pig. But maybe it is because I'm so greedy, too. I want what you got with you.
Why, Golden, your miserable sunbaked hide.
Now, take it easy, old timer. It's okay. All I've got on me is a wristwatch and a few bucks. Let them have them. And besides, what's he going to do with a wagon load of unrefined gold ore?
You talk like a little boy. I know what you have with you, and I know where it is. It's under the seat. The little white bags. $30,000 of pure gold.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, hardly a clue to start on, and the witnesses' stories at hopeless variance. That was the job that the Birmingham, Alabama police faced in the murder called the Case of the Hue and Cry. Later tonight on Gangbusters, Birmingham's own police chief comes to CBS to tell you how they tracked down the apparently unmotivated murder. Be sure to hear this true-to-life police story, reenacted on Gangbusters. Gangbusters and the Adventures of Philip Marlowe are regular Saturday night features on most of these same CBS stations. Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
So there I was, Johnny Dollar, efficiency expert. I had efficiently gotten myself in trouble. I was efficiently letting El Puerco walk off with a large pot of your gold, and stood a good chance of efficiently getting myself shot in the belly.
There we are, amigos. I feel better now the gold is in my little aeroplane. I hope you're not mad with me. You know, I need the money to pay my taxes.
Okay, you got what you wanted. Why don't you take off and get out of here?
That ding-dang rascal, he's probably figured on shooting us.
Oh, no, old man. I'm a very scientific bandido. You think I want to shoot you and get killed myself for murder? Oh, no. I let your mules do the dirty work. Well, Manuel, Pedro, Juanito, here, adelante. Take these men and tie them up. Tie them to the stake back to back. And the rest of you tie up the mules in a circle around them, in nice and close. Then I will get in my little aeroplane and dive on the mules. And the mules will kick their heads off.
Pitching horseshoes may be fun, but not when they're being pitched at your head by a mule. Once we were tied back to back on the stake, the nearest available technical advisor, Kangaroo, was anything but encouraging.
That's the trouble with a gold-darned mule. When they get riled up, they think with their feet. Here he comes. Oh, there. Oh, you mule. Ah, there. I guess we showed him.
Yeah.
I ain't stunned mules 40 years for nothing. I can handle them.
Oh, nice going, Kangaroo.
Now, listen, Sonny, I got me idea.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, go something like this. Hey! Oh!
Just as the idea, whatever it was, hit Kangaroo, a hoof from one of the mules scored a ringer around my cranium. Ah, the stars looked beautiful. They came out in the shape of a horseshoe. And as I slipped into that familiar Betty Bye for private eyes, the world of hit-on-the-head darkness, I could hear Kangaroo's advice, too little and too late.
There, you see? You can never trust a mule. Never trust a mule. Never trust a mule.
A long time later, the curtains of my eyelids went up on the next act. But something was wrong. The stage was still dark. The stars were still there, but not in a horseshoe pattern. I closed my eyes and dreamed some more. I was lying near an oasis in the Sahara Desert, and a beautiful maiden was bending over me, kissing me. She was breathing hard. She could have used some sense then. Huh? What? Nugget, get away from me, you mangy cur.
Nugget, get away from him. Oh, Johnny, you frightened
Huh?
me.
What? Jackie. Oh, what are you doing out here?
Well, take it easy, pal. It's a darn good thing I am out here. You getting yourself kicked in the head.
Let's just say the wrong end of a horse got mixed up with the wrong end of a mule. Hey, where's Kangaroo? Where are the mules? What's going on?
Johnny, relax. Kangaroo and the mules are on their way back to the mine.
Oh, where's Pancho Tortilla?
Who?
There was a Mexican bandit out here. The greatest piece of typecasting since the Gutenberg Bible.
Oh, El Puerco.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kangaroo told me about him. Come on now. Try to get up. Come on.
Hey, what happened to you? Your clothes are all torn.
Yeah. This is Mr. Doyle's idea of a proposal of marriage. We were supposed to fly off together to South America tonight. Been planning it for a long time.
Well, what made you change your mind?
Oh, you know how it is. Best laid plans of mice and men.
Oh, yeah. You're talking to an expert. If everything went all right for me, where would I be next week? Same time, same station. But what's your angle?
I told you before. I came out to Skull Canyon to marry a man. I've reason to believe that Doyle did away with him to get his job so he could milk the mine. Well, I stayed on and acted just interested enough in Doyle to get him nice and relaxed, hoping he'd spill something. Well, so far all it's been is bragging up life in South America with him.
Oh.
Now, I hope you can help me. And I know I can help you.
How?
Well, Doyle set up a refining layout right in the mine. When the gold he's been stealing comes out, it's pure gold.
Aha. Then somebody in the mine must have tipped off El Puerco.
Mm-hmm, Doyle did.
Oh.
He and El Puerco are working together. El Puerco's job was to get the gold across the border and you out of the way.
I see. Well, listen, you ever been in the mine? I mean, could you show me the way the refining layout?
Oh, no. Doyle's never let me inside.
Well, how about the charts of the mine?
They're in the safe. I've got the combination. If we can just get in without Doyle seeing me, I can get him.
Now, leave that to me. Come on, let's get going. Wait a minute. How do we get back?
Well, I came out in the Jeep.
Oh, my aching head. This is close enough, Star Eyes. We better pull up right here.
All right. Nugget, quiet.
Say, the wedding may be off, but it sounds like the reception is still on.
No, that's the regular Saturday night square dance.
Oh. Well, look, from here, which way is the office? I'm lost.
Right over here.
Oh.
Come on, I'll show you. We were in it yesterday.
When we rounded the corner of the office building, my heart was doing a dozy-do. The door of the safe was open, and so was the mouth of the fellow in front of us, but he wasn't saying anything. He was lying on the floor, dead. El Puerco, the pig. Well, what a spot for a big red apple.
Johnny, dead. He must have come back for something. Kangaroo must have caught up with him.
Whoever caught up with him, but good. Come on, let's go take a look for Kangaroo.
Wait. Yeah. Careful, darling. Doll may be in there.
Boy, tight spots really give that word darling a good workout, don't they? Okay, darling. Wait out here. I'll be careful. Say, partner, you seen Kangaroo around here?
Kangaroo?
Yeah.
Well, sure. Kangaroo came in here looking for Doyle.
Well, did you find him?
Well, don't know. Doyle went over to the mine.
Is that where Kangaroo went?
Well, if I was looking for Doyle, that's where I'd go.
Thank you, Bottleneck. I don't know why I was in such a hurry heading straight into trouble. But the trouble started popping before we got to it.
Oh, poor Kangaroo.
Jackie was only guessing, but I could only hope she wasn't guessing right.
Johnny, I thought I saw something flashing just inside.
Probably somebody's last spark of life. Now, take it easy. You stay right here. I'll move in from the side of the entrance.
No, I don't... Oh, all right. Be careful.
Oh. He sure got you good, partner. Okay, Jackie. You can relax. The right man got it. Your play man. Mr. Doyle.
Oh, Johnny, it's awful. What a relief.
Hey, Kangaroo. You can come on now. Everything's all right. It's us, Jackie and Dollar.
Anyway, don't make a move, or I'll shoot you down.
Hey, what the...
Harry! Stay where you are.
Larry, you mean the guy you thought was dead? The guy you were supposed to marry?
Yes. Oh, Larry. Larry died.
I'll kill you.
No. Oh, Larry. Larry, what's happened to you?
I will kill you. All right.
Come on, kid. It wasn't worth waiting for anyway. Oh, well, Kangaroo, I'm glad your first interest was feeding your mules so that you didn't get mixed up in all that shooting.
Yep. Poor. Well, I'll tell you. When three bad eggs like Hodges and Doyle and El Puerco get together double-crossing each other, they all gotta wind up in the omelet. They're dead. Sure feels good to get your boots off. That Larry feller thought he was pretty smart, holding up in that mine with his own private smelter, using Doyle for a front. The only thing was he didn't figure on Doyle falling in love with his woman.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Say, for a young fella, you sure talk a lot. How about using some of that breath you're wasting on that kerosene lamp, huh? Quick. Right.
Expense account, item 4, $6.10. 1 quart snake bite medicine, 32 ounces of prevention in case a snake should bite me. Item 5, $3.40, with which I purchased the nicest gift I could think of for a gal in Jackie Moreland's position. A telegram to you, requesting that you give her a job she very much deserved, the managership of the Skull Canyon mine. You see, when she first found out that man she was going to marry didn't love her, she took out her affection on the territory, which makes me very sorry that I wasn't born in the state of Arizona. Expense account, item 6, $164.35. Transportation, Twin Buttes to Hartford. Expense account total, $947.99, which makes just about as much sense as you can make without making it a dollar. Signed, yours, no charge for that double talk. Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell. Script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Doris Singleton, John Daner, Willard Waterman, Fred Howard, and Don Diamond. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Your announcer is Paul Masterson. Be sure to be with us at the same time next week when another unusual expense account is handed in by
yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Music Popular and Music Western are on the bill for CBS listeners again tonight. Vaughn Monroe and his band will present the 5 top tunes of the week, plus Army and Navy marching songs, Anchors Away, On Brave Old Army Team, and many others. Gene Autry follows right on the heels of Vaughn's Caravan with favorites straight from the land of sagebrush and 6-guns. For an hour of wonderful music, hear Vaughn Monroe's Caravan and the Gene Autry Show tonight and every Saturday on most of these same CBS stations. Stay tuned now for Vaughn Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these stations. This is CBS, where yours truly, Johnny Dollar, meets adventure every Saturday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. I think they got every Western cliche in there. The chewing tobacco imagery, that was kind of messy. But, all right, well, that wraps up. We're running out of... we're actually running out of the Charles Russell episodes, and I'll be getting ready soon to play the Edmund O'Brien shows. Next pick I'm getting off of Netflix will actually be the great Edmund O'Brien film, The Killers, from 1946. But now it's time to get into our comment. This comes from Michael Kilfoy, who writes, I enjoy your show a great deal. I listen to it and a few others featuring old-time radio detective shows. My all-time favorite is Pat Novak. Great language. Incredible sense of atmosphere. Second that for Jeff Regan. I like Jack Webb better on those than in Dragnet. Maybe that's sacrilege, but it's true. Another one that I think is very well written and acted is Barry Craig. I heard William Gargan was actually a private detective for a while. Maybe that's why his character is so memorable. I hope he makes it on your yay list. Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Barry Craig. Because I hadn't heard him mentioned, but he's one of my favorites, and he was a private investigator, and he played the role quite a bit. He not only did Barry Craig, he did Ross Dolan, he did Martin Kane on radio and on television, and he also did 2 Ellery Queen movies. So this guy definitely played on that detective experience. He says, I'm surprised you're considering vetoing Sam Spade. That's a well-written show. Maybe it's not true to the original, but then neither is Sherlock Holmes. It reminds me a little of some punchier versions of Philip Marlowe, which is also a fave, but I have to confess some of that may be because for me, Chandler is the best detective author ever. Well, we'll definitely do Marlowe, and we're probably going to do Spade. I like to listen to a little bit more of it. And he says, your beginning lineup has been awesome with Patsy, Jeff Regan, Box 13, Johnny Dollar, and George Valentine. Thanks again for keeping the flame burning bright. I look forward to hearing more. Well, thank you so much, Michael, and appreciate your comments. I especially appreciate you mentioning Barry Craig. Well, we will be back next week with Box 13 on Monday, and then on Friday, of course, yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.